Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Communities Committee. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the Council website for public listening. Can I just remind members to follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting your microphones and switching off your video when you are not addressing the meeting. Should you wish to contribute to any item, you should write "Speak" in the Teams chat function, and you will be invited to speak in order about new issues. Should your question or issue be raised by a previous speaker, please withdraw your request so that we deal with the business as efficiently as possible. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. If any member has to leave the meeting for any reason, can I remind you to either write "leave" in the Teams meeting for that period of time, and you can write "leave" in the chat function and then join when you come back to us, so that the team can monitor members' presence. Okay, that's the housekeeping. Item 1, the Sediment and apologies and approval of members' remote participation. Claire, can you provide the Sediment, please, indicating who is participating remotely, and any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. We have 6 members for the benefit of the people on team, 6 members currently in the Council Hall. Obviously, being the Vice Chair, Councillor Scobie, Councillor Stitt, Councillor Wilson and Councillor Wood, as well as obviously yourself, Chair. All the other members are on Teams. As far as I can see, the only member currently not present is Councillor Ian Carruthers.
Okay, so thanks very much, Claire. So I confirm my agreement to the participation of those members named as participating remotely.
I am present, Chairman, just for the record. Ian Carruthers.
Ian, thanks very much, Ian. I would also advise members that have agreed to receive an urgent item of business on the Infrastructure Capital Programme, and it's my intention to take the item at the end of the meeting under any other business. This report is presented as an initial report because our monthly monitoring of the Capital Programme has identified that changes were required to the budget allocations that require member decisions. It is a late report because the detailed analysis was only completed after the Communities Committee papers had been issued. The report should not be delayed to a later meeting so that the changes to significant projects and programmes contained within the 2020-21 Infrastructure Asset Class Capital Programme can be implemented as soon as possible. Now, it's my intention to have a 30-minute lunch break, or about 1 o'clock, give or take 5-10 minutes either side. So members will have the opportunity to read that report then, if everybody's happy. And I'm assuming it will be out to people electronically. And is there hard copies for people? Yes, there is. So they'll be shared later on. So, yeah. All right then. With that in mind, let's move on to declarations of interest. Have any declarations of interest? Ian Blake, you want to come in?
Yes, Chairman, it was just to say that David Ingalls will be late. He is coming to the meeting, but will be late.
Thanks very much, Ian. Gail?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I popped in the chat that I'll declare an interest in item 19, that a member of my family is involved in a local community group that's looking at the CAT transfer for the facilities at Tundergarth. So I will leave the meeting.
Thanks very much, Gail. That's noted. Any other declarations of interest? Ronnie? Ronnie, have you got your hand up?
Sorry, Chair. My mistake.
That's okay, Ron. Okay, so if there's no more declarations of interest, we'll move on to item 3, the minute of the meeting of the 1st October. This minute's for approving. Willie?
Not so much to say that there's anything wrong with the minute. It was just in 2 items, 10 and I believe 13, you did ask for members to get 2 briefing papers. One, I got a notification last night on the flood prevention that it is running late and I should receive it this week, but it's for all members. And the other one was on the vehicle fleet. I asked the question and you did say that we would get a copy. There was a report of 145,000 I think the figure was, if memory serves me correctly, in the report, in terms of the vehicles that were purchased along with the bins and everything, and we would get a further explanation on that. Those were two briefing papers instructed by yourself, Chair.
Okay, so I'm assuming that we can pick that up offline and then we can share it with all members of the committee, Willie. I think is probably the best thing. You okay, Derek? Yep, that's fine. Thanks very much. Thanks for drawing that to attention, Willie. Thank you. So we'll move on to item 4. This report provides members with an overview of the financial performance against budget for communities for the year 20 to 21 within the context of the COVID-19 emergency response and subsequent recovery. We've got Caroline McQuiston is available in Teams to take any questions in this report. You there, Caroline?
Yes.
Sorry, just before you do, Caroline, Harry, did you want to come in on that last issue that Willie raised?
Just to advise, Chair, that in terms of the vehicle cost, we will give the overall income generated from that, including the refuse vehicles, that will get sent out ASAP.
Thanks very much. Thanks for clearing that up. Sorry, Caroline, to interrupt you. Back over to you. Is there anything you'd like to highlight, or are you happy to go to questions?
Happy to go to questions.
Okay, then. Any questions for the officer? No. I haven't got anybody coming in at all. In that case, then, I'll just move to the recommendations. We're happy or we're asked to note the anticipated financial pressures associated with COVID-19 pandemic as at 2.1. 2.2, that based on the position at the end of September 2020 and excluding those additional costs that have been attributed to the COVID-19 response and recovery, communities are projecting to break even against our 2021 agreed budget. 2.3, progress against the delivery of the agreed savings applied to the community's budget, and then 2.4, progress against the delivery of the agreed policy development allocations applied to the 2021 community's budget. So we are happy to agree on these. Thank you very much. Move on to item number 5. The report provides members with an update on the work of the Welfare and Benefit Services and the impact of COVID-19 on the delivery of these and associated services. Lorna Campbell, as the lead officer, is available in Teams to take any questions on the report. There, Lorna?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'm here.
Is there anything you'd like to add? Are you quite happy to go to questions?
I'm happy to go to questions. Just a couple of things in the report. I'd just like to clarify in section recommendation 2.2, it has said we'll come back to January committee. That's obviously February committee. And in paragraph 322, there were some figures that relate to Appendix 1 that are slightly different. So we'd said that the number of council tax reduction cases had increased to 14,000. It's actually 13,354, which is an increase of 586. And those figures are correct in the Appendix 1. And I'm happy to move to questions. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions for Lorna? Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. The first one is to ask, how is this extra £500 calculated? And then the other question is this a one-off payment? Third question, does it affect the person's credit rating? Fourth question, can this be reclaimed should circumstances improve for the client? And the fifth question, can we evidence this is good use of public funds as it's a discretionary?
Okay, Lorna, did you catch all that?
I think so. I take this as a £500 self-isolation payment we're talking about.
Yes, I think that's right, yes.
So the £500 self-isolation payment was, that's set by the Scottish Government, the actual value. It's not something we've calculated locally. I think we said that about evidence, whether it's good use of public funds, obviously we'll report back to the Scottish Government how many applications that there have been and how many people have paid out. Obviously the question of whether that's good use as an officer, I can't answer that. Is that all correct? Have I missed any of the questions there?
Chair.
Yeah, do you want to come back, Andrew?
Yes. One of the questions is it a one-off payment? And
Oh, yes, sorry.
can that be reclaimed if the circumstances change?
Yes, it is a one-off payment. It's a payment that's not being reclaimed. It's a payment if they meet the qualifying criteria, they receive that payment, and there's no mechanism to reclaim that. It's a grant.
Thank you. No, that's much appreciated.
Okay, Willie?
Yeah, Chair, I would firstly start off in commending both the Welfare and Housing Option team, where we've prevented in the report 128 evictions and supported customers to secure 737k of income. Likewise, in the previous page under 3.52, the team that has brought in something to the value of 8.1 million for customers in our area, and that speaks volumes of both teams. But it's a worrying aspect to the rest of the report, and really quite frightening when we consider under 3.31, where demand for crisis grants has increased 28% and spend by 96% compared to the same period last year, and similar with the discretionary housing payment. And my question would just ask, is have we, and I heard Lorna say that we could hold back to, or the next meeting or this committee will be February. Will there be enough money in the pot given the serious ramifications of this report on the people out there that are really suffering some in abject poverty? Will we have enough money in the pot to take us over to February? And even taking us over to February, should we really be looking for more money from wherever to top the pot up, given the circumstances out there aren't going to improve?
Willie, thanks. I'll let Lorna come in on that, but my view's quite clear that if there is a requirement to seek more funding, then we've not held to a specific date. We can come forward to a meeting at any time, to be honest with you, as long as it meets the governance arrangements. But Lorna, do you want any comment on that?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I mean, obviously you're aware we monitor the spend both for discretionary housing payments and Scottish Welfare Fund very closely. We monitor it on a weekly basis. We'll have put here it would come back to the next committee, but as you've said, Chair, if there was at any point spend looked like we were going to run out of funds, we would be seeking to come back to committee earlier, but it's something we keep a very tight track on.
Thanks very much, Lorna. You okay that, Willie? Yeah. I've got two more. I've got Jane and then Adam. Jane first.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I just want to say that, I think my impression is that this is a tight and well-run ship, and that we are doing really very well, and I do congratulate the officers on this. But key to success is clearly the level of support, Lorna, that is being offered to individuals. How would I monitor the stories that are maybe less successful?
Lorna, you've a tight ship. I've gone to Mrs. Maitland. How are you going to monitor it?
Well, thank you very much for that. Yes, I mean, obviously we monitor anything that we've got control of, and spend-wise, we do monitor it as tightly as possible, where the spend is, where the demand is, to try and track where there's any dips or rises. Obviously, at the moment, there's a variety of funds out there across, various communities, various national government, Scottish government initiatives. Tracking all the other support can be challenging. Obviously, what we've got control of, we can monitor that, but it's trying to marry that up with what other supports are out there, and to try and avoid that duplication or targeting it at the same people, and making sure that we actually target people who are in need or who are missing out in some areas.
Thanks, Lorna. Jane, just maybe for... I think this department's particularly good at flagging up early identification of pressures that are liable to come about. they've been very proactive in the past, and I think that's the style of management they have there, and reporting back to us. So does that answer your question? Are you happy with that?
Chairman, only partly. I mean, the instances that we've got given to us in the report are clearly successes, and what I'm really getting at is that not everybody surely can have a successful outcome. And I suppose what I'm wanting to know is what we do about monitoring, following up, and how would I know the level of success/failure that is coming about?
Okay, I think that's a fair comment, Lorna. Can we pick that up, Lorna, and include that in our next report to committee?
Yeah, we can look at that. I mean, obviously there's challenges. You know, if someone doesn't meet the criteria for the existing schemes that we've got, we will, where we know that there's other avenues, signpost people to them. You know, but always tracking that is not easy, and is resource intensive to track outcomes we refer elsewhere. So I'll pick that up in the next report and try and do some work round about that.
I suppose as well, just to add to that, then quite good for us to see how many people you've put onto a different pathway when you couldn't help them yourself, without identifying them, of course. Can you do that?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Adam, you want in?
Thanks, Chair. I would associate myself with the initial comments made by both Councillor Scobie and Councillor Maitland on the work of this team. Particularly in the self-isolation support grant, I think that this is very welcome. I believe that all four governments across the UK have committed to this type of support. Of course, to make sure that those who are lowest paid and often on precarious terms and employment terms and conditions are not financially hit as a result of having to self-isolate in essentially the national interest. Lorna, I just have a question on the grant itself. Obviously, for a number of people who are likely to claim this grant in Dumfries and Galloway are those who are carers, and by the nature of a carer's role, they are likely to be in contact with more people, and therefore more likely to have to self-isolate on more than one occasion. And I just wanted to clarify, if a person, if an individual was asked to self-isolate by Test and Protect, say for the next 2 weeks, and then in December they were again asked to self-isolate for 2 weeks, would they be entitled to receive that grant on both occasions, or once you've had it once, is that you?
Thanks, Adam. My understanding is yes, but what I'll maybe do is bring Paula's also on the call. She's been involved in the operational side of it. She might provide more clarity around about that.
Thanks for that, Lorna. As long as the customer satisfies the conditions, they can receive the grant multiple times. So the main issue around the two separate periods of self-isolation is they have to be separate and distinct. So the example you gave, Adam, yes, that customer would be eligible to receive the grant twice, as long as they satisfy the conditions on both occasions.
Any other questions? Okay, yeah. That's fine, thanks. I'm not seeing any other questions, Lorna. Just a comment from me. The feedback I get, in actual fact, is hugely positive, in people who come to you for help are treated with respect, dignity. These are the comments, their comments, not mine. So I thank you. Can you thank the entire team through you and Paula, your respective teams? If you can pass that message on, I'd be hugely appreciative.
Will do, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, then we'll move to recommendations. We're being asked to increase the discretionary housing payment to £2,000 for those at threat of homelessness, and 2.2, agree to receive a further report on the potential funding pressures in Scottish Welfare Fund and discretionary housing payment in February, which is a difference 2021, as set out in paragraphs 3.33 and 3.43. Agreed? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item number 6. Sorry, thanks, Lorna. Thanks, Paula. Yep. Move on to item number 6, the progress report on the anti-poverty strategy 2015 to 20 and future arrangements for tackling poverty and inequalities within our region. The purpose of the report is for members to scrutinise progress in the final performance monitoring report on our anti-poverty strategy action plan and to consider the next steps in tackling poverty and inequalities within our region. As members are aware, the Council is committed to giving direct help to vulnerable people and supporting organisations who carry out such vital work. The distribution of hardship funding and other funding is making a real difference to people's lives. One such initiative is the provision of cash payments for the holiday food programme, which we had made financial provision for. It is therefore welcome news, as outlined in paragraph 3.5 of the report, that the cost of this intervention will be funded through the Scottish Government. It will therefore provide the Council with the opportunity to consider emerging national and local research about poverty, as well as the engagement with our Tackling Poverty Reference Group to best decide how the remaining monies will be allocated. Wendy Jesson is available through the teams to take any questions on the report. Are you there, Wendy?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. I'm here to answer any questions at all. Nothing more to add on the report, and Mark Malloy is also available as well to answer anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Wendy. So we're ready to go straight to questions then. Willie?
Yeah, Chair, I think we've got to recognise this is a mammoth task in tackling poverty, and the previous report indicates that. And for me, I feel that we are struggling to get to everyone, and it's not just our remit. It's both Scottish and UK government to tackle this problem. I want to praise Wendy and Mark for their unstinting work and efforts at what is a huge brief for two people in terms of tackling poverty, and some of the projects and work that both have been doing has been tremendous. Nothing better than the winter warm clothes that Wendy promoted. But we really are facing a huge problem here. And I'm looking at 316. Since the last report, the committee, the new Children's Service Plan for 2020 to 2023 has been agreed, with reducing the impact of poverty on children and young people as one of its priorities. The figures out just lately has said that we were in 1 in every 4 children were living in poverty. That has now increased to above 25%, where it's sitting about the 26th and rising. And I think we've got to focus our attention on how we get children out of poverty, along with the many other facets of people living in poverty, but particularly children. And we've got to find a means of how we monitor the bringing children out of poverty, where, you know, we are going the opposite way, even with all the efforts and work that's being put in. And I think it's something that the working group has got to try and see, how do we do this? Rather than looking at digital and all the rest, how do we bring children out of poverty? 1 in 4 and rising. So in that respect, Chair, I think that for this report, you know, I'm sure it will, but we need to focus the attention of the working group in terms of how we bring children out of poverty. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I think we've really got to sit down and concentrate our efforts on bringing children out of poverty.
Thanks, Willie. And as you know, you're in the officer member working group, and with Adam and myself, and occasionally some of the independent group. I think what this is about here is actually is how we take it forward, and this is a historical thing, telling us how we've done, but it's the lessons we're learning as well as we take this through. And I think I don't want to jump in say too much, because I think when that working group's work is finished and the external verification is maybe a better guide in self-analysis, you know. So just give me a second, and I'll let Wendy come in, maybe to answer specifically some of your questions, but then I'll let you back in, Willie. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Scobie. In relation to what you're saying, you're totally correct. The child poverty figures have increased, and that's been throughout the whole of Scotland that's actually occurred. I think within our region, we are lucky that we do have our anti-poverty strategy, and we did have the foresight to install that and agree that from June 2015. And it's been incredibly beneficial to have all the factors in place to mitigate the effects of poverty, particularly child poverty, throughout this time. Obviously, we've amended a lot of the projects as we've progressed, and a lot of the recent initiatives that we've delivered, which have included the free school meals during the school holidays, where we've amended it to be the actual cash payment instead of it being the boxes that have been delivered, have made a huge impact in terms of child poverty and helping the families. Again, the work that was done by our colleagues Lorna and Paula in the financial wellbeing services team, and also education services, where we matched up all the families who were receiving the free school clothing grants, but maybe not the free school meals, to ensure that everybody was successfully matched, to ensure nobody was missing out, has made a positive impact as well. And also the free school uniform grant increase from £100, which was supported by the Scottish Government. Previous to that, we delivered £85 each. It went up to £100 a year, and then we increased it up to £134 per pupil. Again, that's made a huge impact because it's allowed parents to purchase 2 or 3 lots of uniforms for the kids, rather than them maybe having one uniform to send back to school in the summer, and they're able to maybe buy 2 or 3 to keep them going through the year. And then the free school uniform project that we initially devised, which was the precursor to the warm winter clothes project, has been incredibly successful, because no child now has to do without a new uniform at any time, and there's collection points throughout the region that families can drop into. But you're totally right, Councillor Scobie, and we will be looking at all the lessons learned from all the projects which have been delivered, and that will be included in the evaluation which is currently being completed. Thank you.
Okay, Willie?
Chair, if you just come back, I offer no criticism either of Mark nor of Wendy, and welcome the remarks that she's just made. It is a problem facing the whole of Scotland, but it's our problem in Dumfries and Galloway. And I think that, what I was saying, not so much a question, but that as a working group, we've got to hone down on these figures and how we bring, notwithstanding that the evaluation is coming forward, we've got to tackle this problem now, because it's on the increase, and it's not historical. It's increasing as we speak, and we can't allow it to continue to increase. We've got to find a way of how we concentrate the efforts being put in by Wendy and Mark and many others in the team in the previous report. How do we hone down on that to make sure that we bring children out of poverty and tackle some of the other issues as well? So it's still a mammoth task, but we've got to do it as the working group.
Exactly, as I said just before, Willie, that the research is currently going on, the academic research into how we've performed in the past, and then looking at the ongoing projection figures for the future. We'll all get married together into that report, and as you know, you're on that working group with me and Adam and others, so we can make sure that we've got a full picture, or as full a picture as we possibly can, what the situation is. I think it's best we can do, actually. But I laud your sentiment, absolutely. But we can only do what we can do. So I think that's the bit for me there. I've got Adam coming in now.
Thanks, Chair. And I think absolutely it is a mammoth task. But then it's good to make sure that we do the things that aren't just easy, but the things that are absolutely right, and tackling poverty is absolutely right. One of my favourite things to talk about is collecting that data, and one thing that we have looked at through the member officer working group is on actually mapping poverty. I've said in the past on a number of occasions that obviously all of our communities are unique across Dumfries and Galloway, and therefore the poverty experience across our communities is similarly unique. And ahead of the next member officer working group, I'd be quite keen for Wendy and Mark to think about actually, obviously we've started to do a lot of that data collection and to pull that together through the research that you've just mentioned, Andy. But actually we know that unfortunately, over the coming months, hopefully that might have changed slightly given recent announcements on business support, but it is likely that, unfortunately, more people will face redundancy over the next coming months, and that will exacerbate the problem at this moment in time. It's not natural for anybody to have to ask for help, and it especially won't be natural to those people who unfortunately are likely to be made redundant over the next couple of months. So I think that there's a need for us to understand that data as well. A very difficult task, but there's a need for us to make sure that we acknowledge it and that we know what the effects of that could be, and sort of how long do we think those people could be able to work, because that will have an impact on child poverty and poverty across the region. And I think ahead of the next member officer working group and indeed setting out that new strategy, we need to understand that data as much as all the data that we've aimed to gather thus far.
Okay, Wendy, can you capture that for the agenda for the next meeting?
Certainly, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And I don't know if it might provide any comfort, but in relation to the Advice and Information Services Commission, which is delivered by Dumfries and Galloway Citizens Advice Service, we've been working with them to develop new supporting arrangements for people who maybe face unemployment for the first time in their lives and aren't familiar with the benefits system. So these are specifically the type of person that you're possibly mentioning, Councillor Wilson, that find themselves unemployed for the first time in their lives and are needing that dedicated support. So there will be more support available for these people at this time. And also, of course, through our own welfare and benefits team who look after anybody over the age of 60. So we are working on that to ensure we're covered as much as we possibly can to provide the support that people are going to need. But we can certainly do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I let you in, Andrew, just one comment from me in that. I'm actually really pleased. This isn't just about kids. I mean, that's bad enough, but we've got adults. And I think I described it on the radio one day that it's like an iceberg that's slowly but surely is getting, the ocean's shrinking a bit, and you can see the size of the problem. It's growing by the minute. And there's people who are sort of pension poor, who are just above where they can get any extra money. It's a massive problem, and I think it's not got to be an easy piece of work. I think it's got to be really difficult to get it to try and articulate it into one document. I think it's so complex. Andrew, sorry, yes.
No, thank you, Chair. I notice in 3.12 that the strategy actually concludes in 2020, and it's going to be covered with continued monitoring, that's good. Also in 3.13, I like the fact that it has been identified that the same old processes aren't the answer, that there's 3 good bullet points here. So what I'm looking for is, when do you anticipate the new model being presented, and how, and what sort of timescales are we talking?
I think Mark might maybe want to come in on this one, if that's
Are you
okay,
there, Mark?
Mark?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Chair. Councillor Wood, in terms of the next Regents, our intention is to bring a report to Communities Committee in February, which will outline what our future arrangements will be, taking into consideration the points that are mentioned in 3.13, and that will be the natural next step for when the current strategy comes to an end.
I think just for the record as well, Mark, there's considerable work going on behind the scenes to get this work completed, am I right?
Yeah, that's right, Chair. We've been doing work. If you take away the interruption of COVID, the work has been going on from the start of the year, very much with that leadership coming from yourself and the members on the member officer working group. But we are working with an external organisation who are a specialist in terms of tackling poverty and inequalities, and the intention has been that once the consultations are finished, we've completed phase 1, which was working with our partners to very much focus on what worked well in the past and looking at what options are working well in other local authority areas. And we're in the middle of phase 2 of that work just now, which will be completed before Christmas, which will develop the discussions with members and our partners around what our future arrangements could be, whether that is a new strategy, or whether it's a poverty commission, or whether it's a set of priorities and commitments. But I think the direction we're very much going in, as well as, and this alludes to what Councillor Scobie mentioned earlier, is that the council can't do this alone, and it needs to be very much a partnership approach as we move forward, and that is the direction we're working in, and we'll bring back that report and recommendations to this committee in February.
Okay, and just before I let Andrew back in, we did ask for warts and all, so I'm assuming the things that didn't work well will get reported as well, Mark.
Yeah, I can give you that assurance, Chair, that the evaluation has looked at, where we've made positive outcomes. We'll very much want to highlight that, but at the same time, where we've got learning and where maybe things didn't go quite as we had expected, because I think it's important to acknowledge that a number of the projects that we took forward were innovative in the first time that they'd been delivered. So you can't always be sure of what the outcome of that would be, but that very much will be reported in that report, so it will cover the evaluation as well as the future arrangements.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Andrew, you want back in?
Yes, it was that point that Mark raised about partnership work, and it's excellent news that as well, because it's not just down to the council. But what I was going to ask is, have we identified all the partners that we should have involved in this project?
You take that, Mark?
Through yourself. Yeah, if that's okay, Chair. I think that the assurance I could give to Councillor Wood is that this work has been taken forward with the Poverty Coordination Group, which is a subgroup of the Community Planning Partnership. So it includes our registered social landlords, it includes DACAS, third sector partners, NHS and council. So through that, one of the first things we've done was a mapping exercise to make sure that based on the organisations and community groups that are currently working in our region, that we ensured that we had all the organisations included in that, and that very much has been an open invitation to organisations to participate within the evaluation and the development of the new arrangements. But if there is any specific organisations that Councillor Wood's interested in, I'd be happy to pick that up after the meeting with them and provide that reassurance. And if the organisations are not involved, as would be the offer to all members, we'd be happy to include them as we're going through phase 2 of that work.
Okay, Andrew, yeah. Thanks very much. Thanks, Mark. Adam, you want back in?
Sorry, Mark has just said the very point I was going to make it right at the very end of his remarks there.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else want to come forward. In that case, then, we'll go to the recommendations. Are we happy to note 2.1? Sorry, wait. Yeah, note 2.1, sorry, and 2.2. Okay, happy note. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Wendy and Mark. Thank you. Move on to item number 7. Again, tackling poverty budget for 2021 to be determined by PB. The purpose of the report is to agree the arrangements for the tackling poverty budget to be determined by PB. Again, Mark is available through Teams to take any questions on the report. Is there anything you want to update, Mark, or are you just happy to go straight to questions?
No, happy to go straight to questions, Chair.
Okay, we've got questions for either Mark or Wendy still in line. No, yes, yep. Mainly Mark, yeah. Okay, any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any indications people want to speak, so I'm going to go straight to the recommendations, and we're asked to agree 2.1, note the purpose and reporting of the 3 PB exercises, which is their historical ones. 2.2, agree to the proposed purpose for the 2021 budget being the creation of employment opportunities. And then 2.3, agree the arrangements for the PB steering group and the outlined timetable for the implementation. We all happy with that? Thank you. We'll move on to item 8. The review of the road service progress report, findings and recommendations. So the report provides members with a progress report of the review of the road service since the scope of the review was agreed at the full council on the 30th of July this year. It provides the opportunity for members to consider the outputs from the partners workshop held on the 26th of October, the public survey that was undertaken during October 2020, and the public webinar for the review of the road service. The report also seeks members' agreement on the findings and recommendations of the review, including an updated Appendix 4, which replaces pages 101 to 103 of your papers. This reflects the discussion with the members' workshop held on the 5th of November 2020, with the changes highlighted in red. A copy of this is available on Teams invite for this meeting, and following this meeting it will appear as an appendix to the minute. We've got Mike Fox available through Teams to take any questions on the report. Mike, are you there?
Morning, Chair, yes.
Morning, Mike. Are you ready to go straight to questions or any update?
Yes, yep, happy to go to questions.
Thank you. So the floor is open. John Martin.
Thanks, Chair. As I say, it's on page 101, not the first point on our teams. I take it, as I say, we've got there ensure training of every team member is up to date, develop a multi-skilled workforce and ensure terms and conditions, review the opportunities to merge with other services to provide a multi-skilled workforce and develop succession planning. I take it there'll be financial implications on this, and are we sure we can meet these findings out the budget, and can we make sure that we've got the budget if we're going to carry this forward, or it's pointless, it's just pointless, just words if we've not got the budget to carry it forward.
Mike.
Thanks, Chair. What needs to happen with this particular situation is that there needs to be a full and detailed analysis across the workforce of where the skill gaps are and the training associated with that, be it technical staff or be it frontline operational staff. Once that has been concluded, then there will be a need to identify the potential costs associated with that. But at the moment, we don't have any figures on that because the process hasn't actually formally started.
Okay, John. Ian Howie.
Thank you, Chair. It's regarding page 2, Team 4, the last item, which is regarding the parking. And I certainly have concerns regarding the Council taking over the responsibility of parking enforcement. Police Scotland got rid of traffic wardens as a budget save, which begs the question that why we would take it on. But more to the point, has this option been costed?
Thanks, Chair. The situation with the decriminalised parking, there are certain authorities, roads authorities in Scotland that have moved towards this and implemented it, but there are a variety of local authorities that still have not. And very recently, the group of local authorities that have not actually implemented the decriminalised parking have been working together. Almost the most recent meeting was only about 10 days ago, where Scots, the national body, has been assisting and starting the process for these roads authorities to look at the implications of actually implementing decriminalised parking and also using the outcomes from the other authorities that have implemented it and to find out the cost implications for each authority based on the model that they've actually delivered. So to answer the question, there's no costings associated with that at the moment. We're, I would say, in the very early stages of looking at the different models on how that can be delivered.
Yeah, and I'm assuming, Mike, that would then come back to as part of the improvement action plan in February 21, is that right?
It would indeed. The improvement action plan would have that level of detail against it.
Thanks, Mike. You okay with that, Ian?
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. I've got Adam and then Ian Blake.
Thanks. Chair. I mean, just in the back of that last point, I think, but there's also a number of local authorities who have proven that you can decriminalise parking and carry out that work in a cost-effective manner. And obviously, due to recent legislative changes, those enforcements have increased to include pavement parking, which I'm sure would be welcome news to local residents. That wasn't my point. My point was going to be on, I think that this has been a really good opportunity for not just elected members, but for our local communities to be able to have a say in how our road service operates. And I think that there has been a significant amount of work done. I welcome the emerging findings out of this review to date. Just one small plea that I would have is that I think that we need to not lose the momentum. I think that we have had a really good set of workshops and a lot of good feedback collated. In the action plan that comes to February committee, I would be keen to see timescales along with that action plan so that communities and the wider public are aware of the changes that we are going to make and how quickly we're able to make those changes, because I think that it's fair to say that our communities do want to see these changes, and I think they would rather see them as quickly as possible, so that will help to keep the momentum on this overall project.
Thanks. I've got Ian Blake, then Andrew Wood, and then Pauline in that order. Ian?
Thank you, Chairman. It's going back to the decriminalisation of parking. I personally welcome this. It was unfortunate when Police Scotland decided not to enforce parking and it left us in a void. We just need to look at towns like Castle Douglas, which is an absolute mess at the best of times because of the indiscriminate parking. In the past, I mean, we've raised this, the Conservative group raised this on many occasions in the past to try and bring this onto the table, and the administration at the time and the reports that came back to us at that time were kind of highlighted the high cost that this was going to be. I personally don't think this is the case. I think the cost maybe not will be self-paying, cost neutral, I should say, but it's certainly something that we should be progressing as a matter of urgency.
Thanks, Ian. I'll take that as a statement rather than a question. Thank you. Andrew, then Pauline, and then Dougie Campbell. So Andrew first.
Thank you, Chair. When I'm looking at Appendix 4, most of the sentences start with ensure, develop and review. In the new process that you're putting into place within this review, are you going to be able to itemise and cover each one of those with a policy and a process?
Mike, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. In essence, every individual item that's identified within the findings and recommendations, not every individual item on that will require a policy. There are a substantial amount that are basically a simple action, and as part of the improvement action plan, it will clearly identify if there is need to have policy development associated with each bullet point.
So just so I'm clear, so that most will be covered by existing policies in some way or other, and the ones that don't, will be introducing new policies. That's, I think, is Andrew's question. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. There are some policies that are corporate policies at the moment that will affect these particular bullet points, but some are specific to road service that will require either development of existing policies or implementation of new policies.
Thanks, Mike. I think that's pretty clear. Yeah, okay. Pauline and then Dougie. Yeah, Pauline first.
Yeah, hi everybody. Hi, Mike. Thank you, Chair. Mike, it's just on page 86, if it's possible to have a look at that. It's point 3.2, agenda item 3.2, and it's with regards to the investigation on the roads contract. So on bullet point number 3, it states that a route and branch review was carried out into the road service, and the scope of the review was reported to full council in June 2020. It could be my mistake, but I don't think, and my team members agree with me here, that there wasn't a full council in July 2020, but we will get recommendations. Well, the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny committee will get a report on this in December 2020. Mike, is that the results of this route and branch review? And did that take place in July, or did anyone get a copy of it? I could be confused myself, but just the dates don't seem right on it.
Mike.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I mean, my understanding certainly is that it was reported through full council July 2020. The recommendations on the findings of the road service review and the recommendations with the associated improvement action plan will be reported to the Audit, Risk and Scrutiny Committee in December.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Pauline, yeah. Dougie Campbell.
Thanks, Chair. The question I had has previously been asked, so I'll withdraw my question. Thanks.
Thanks. Ian Blake, your hand's still up. Is that historical? Or do you want back in?
My mistake, Chairman, it's down now.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Anyone else got any questions for Mike? No. In that case, then, I think I'll move straight to the recommendations. Are we happy to agree 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4 and 2.5? And that's that the findings will be going to Audit and Risk, that's 2.4 in December, and the improvement plan will be coming to this committee in February 21. So are we happy with that? Thank you very much. Move on to item number 9, which is the Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, RIPSA for short. The purpose of the report is to agree updates to our policies in relation to the use of regulation of investigatory powers. Liz Manson is available through Teams to take any questions. Liz, are you there?
I am indeed, Chair, yes.
Thanks. Have you anything to add, or are you ready to go straight to questions?
No, thank you. Very happy just to answer any questions in regard to this committee's interests in these policies. Thank you.
Okay, okay, we'll open the floor. Silence, Liz.
I think perhaps Councillor Blake has his hand up.
No, I think that's the historical one. He's not taking it down yet, unless he's got it back up. I know it's down now. Yep. Okay, I'm not getting anybody want to come in with any questions, Liz. So thank you. So I'll just go to the recommendations. We're asked to agree the updated policy as set out in paragraph 3.9 and in the appendix 1, and agree the updated policy as set in paragraph 310 and in appendix 2. Happy to agree? Thank you very much, everybody. Ready to move on now to item number 10. The Community Learning and Development Partners Plan for 2019 to 2021, end of year report 1920 and planning for the future. Report by Community Planning Engagement Manager. The report seeks member approval of the end of year 2019-20 report of the CLD team and the partners plan 18 to 21, and seeks agreement on arrangements to prepare a new plan in line with the CLD Scotland Regulations 2013. We've got Stephen Jack online. Yeah, I can see him there. Stephen, are you anything to add, or do you want to go straight to questions?
Thanks, Chair. No, I'm fine just to go to questions, please.
Thanks very much. Has there anybody got any questions for Stephen? It's all quiet, Stephen. Right, I've not had anybody indicating they wanted to speak or ask a question. So thanks very much, Stephen. I'm going to move to the recommendations, and we're asked to approve the Community Learning and Development Partners Strategic Plan 18 to 21 end of year report for 1920 as set out in paragraphs 312 to 313. And sorry? Sorry, Jane, you want to come in, yeah? Okay. Before we go to the recommendations, Jane, come in.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I think we shouldn't just sort of zoom past this, because in actual fact, there's an enormous amount of information and success, I think, coming out of this this particular plan and what has happened in the past. There is one issue I did want to raise, not being on the Education Committee. I just looked at the stats on page 167, which is the attainment gap. And these stats are not absolutely wonderful. I think we should all probably actually look at these with respect to our attainment figures between the most and least disadvantaged areas. I think, you know, I echo what previous councillors have said about the direction of travel with respect to poverty and attainment and abilities for particularly our young. And I think we need to really keep an eye on this. Stephen, you know, I think I would congratulate officers on what has been carried out, because there is an enormous amount of work that's gone into this. And I certainly have learnt lots about youth work, which frankly I did not know was happening to the extent that it is in my ward. Now, whether or not that's something that we need to really get a bit more of a handle on, that it trickles through and is reported on a ward basis, because that's what I would like to know on a more regular, in a more regular way. But I thank you for this, and as I say, it's very informative and seems to be, on the whole, a success. So thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Jane. I'm just trying to be really quite clear here. 2018-19, it wasn't our delegated function at that time, but it is now. I think that's your point, isn't it? So as we take this forward, you're absolutely right. We just need to keep an eye on it, Stephen, and give us some information as best you can. Things have changed, obviously, since then. Do you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Maitland, and your positive comments with regards to the plan. And I think, you know, this is such a wide-ranging plan that it cross-cuts, you know, many different services and functions across the council, and certainly, you know, closing that attainment gap, working closely with partners is one of the key focuses of the CLD partnership, and that's certainly one of the priority actions going forward. I'm also happy to explore with the partnership. Whilst I know individual services provide ward information, I'm quite happy to work with partners to see if we can get, you know, a wider range of all the contributors to the CLD plan broken down on a ward basis wherever possible going forward, if you would find that of assistance.
Derek, do you want to come in? The director wants to come in, yeah.
Thanks, Chairman. Morning, members. No, I think this is very helpful. This committee has made clear its direction of travel in the last few months, and that is that whilst you very much commend us the volume and the quality of work going on, we need to improve the extent to which that is reported to members at a ward level. And it's again an example from today's report that we'll take back and progress. So thanks for the feedback, and it's certainly a direction of travel that the management team are very clear that we need to take the appropriate improvement action with. Thanks, Chairman.
Thanks very much. And maybe just to add to that, Derek, it's 2.3, of course, is that would be covered in the new CLD Partners Plan. Okay, so that gives us some comfort, Stephen, if that's the direction of travel. Are you happy with that, Jane?
Thank you, yes.
Okay, thank you. In that case, then, we will go to the recommendations. We're asked to approve the Community Learning and Development Partner Strategic Plan 2018-21 end-of-year report for 1920, as set out in paragraphs 312 to 313 and attached at the Appendix 1. Then 2.2, acknowledge the contribution and impact that CLD partners have had in relation to Dumfries and Galloway's COVID response as detailed in paragraphs 3.14. And then finally 2.3, agree the consultation and engagement mandate for developing a new CLD partners plan for 2021 to 2024 to meet the requirements of the CLD Scotland Regulations 2013, and that's set out in paragraphs 3.24, and the detail is in Appendix 2. Happy to agree with that? Thank you very much. We move on now to item number 11, the Antisocial Behaviour Strategy for 2020 to 2024. 6-member agreement on the ASB strategy in Appendix 1 is required as part of the Section 2 of the Antisocial Behaviour Scotland Act of 2004. Again, Stephen, you're going to take us through this to take questions. Is there anything you want to add at this moment in time, or are you happy for questions?
Thank you, Chair. The only thing to add is that it's a joint responsibility with the Chief Counsel. So we also have Brian Lee, Police Chief Inspector, on the call today to assist with any questions, particularly from a Police Scotland perspective. But other than that, happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, and good morning, Brian. Welcome. Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I've no problem with the strategy itself or the document that we've got in front of us. It's maybe just to glean a little bit of information from Stephen and the police element around what our community safety teams are doing at the moment, and have they been able to get back up and running fairly efficiently, or are they still slightly behind or cut back in what they're able to provide? And I say this, and I know that Adam's on the call as well. We've had some fairly significant increases in vandalism in 2 of the parks in Annandale North. We've seen a marked increase in dog fouling, and it's been reported back to us by many folk in the community that the community wardens just are not visible at the moment. Now, that's no criticism of the community safety teams. They're absolutely brilliant, and I know that they're a small team. But it's maybe just to get an idea of where we're at with activity with them, where we're linking with the police, because again, I'm very mindful that with the activity we've had in Annandale North, that I suspect the police are struggling to keep on top of it at times. And I think that when we're able to find funding for, and I'm saying this in quotes, town centre ambassadors to go around businesses and make sure that they're all operating correctly, which the majority of them are, it does make me wonder if we shouldn't now be viring some of that resource into our community safety teams, or viring some of that resource over to assist with the community safety teams. Because if we've seen a marked increase in a very nice rural area like Annandale North, I suspect that it's replicated across the region. And as I say, I appreciate that this is a strategy, but it's a hook that I was able to hang this on. So just an understanding of where we're at with the community safety teams, and should we be redeploying people like town centre ambassadors, who I think their work will be coming to an end because businesses have been brilliant, into the community safety team. Thank you.
Stephen?
Okay, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor McGregor. So yeah, the peak COVID period did impact on the community safety team, with a number of officers being redirected to help with, for example, food deliveries, etc., medicine deliveries. However, from around September time, resources have come back online, and they have got a slightly wider remit, and they continue to prioritise some of the activities you're talking about. I know, for example, within Newton Stewart, they'd been working within the town centre there and the town centre ambassadors, and the multi-agency tactical and coordination groups, they've continued to operate on a monthly basis. So that's the main mechanism at the moment, where there's clear identified antisocial behaviour issues in wards or areas, that and community safety are involved in that, along with police, social work and other partners, and they actively look at how they can deploy resources jointly within the areas that are hotspots, for example. So I'm happy to take that back through the head of service, and if it would help, prepare a briefing note for members on the current roles and responsibilities of the community safety team and how that resource is being deployed.
I think that'd be very helpful, Stephen. Thank you. You okay with that, Gail?
Yeah, I'm very happy with that. But as I say, I think if we can find resource for short-term town centre ambassadors, we've maybe got to look at that resource for other purposes. And certainly, I don't know about other councillors' inboxes, but I'm not being contacted by individuals in the community saying that businesses are in breach of COVID regulations. I am, however, inundated with dog fouling and antisocial behaviour. So I think it's about targeting the resource where it will be better utilised. Not a criticism, but we are where we are. But we're seeing an increase in antisocial behaviour in a very small rural area like this, so it's bound to be happening even worse in the towns. But thank you, Andy, that would be great.
Okay, thanks for that, Stephen. I've got Willie and Dougie Campbell and then Ian Howie in that order. Willie first.
Yeah, just to build on what Gail was saying there and how she's inundated, and I would hazard a guess and say, well, there is not one of us that has been inundated in antisocial behaviour complaints, and that we then have to try and find a way of dealing with a particular issue. On any ones that I've dealt with, it's a no-win for the elected member in terms of trying to find some sort of compromise or means of getting two parties to work together. And that doesn't take away from the antisocial behaviour that goes on in groups and so forth and so on. I think there's been a trick. I think I first heard about this review when I sat down with Brian Lee, get my names mixed up with Brian Lee, to say that there was a review going on. And I think I'm looking at this in terms of the partnership approach and looking at the multi-agency arrangements, and I see all the different names. And I think it would be helpful if members or there was a member input into these issues, because they can start to bring out the particular issues, because I know the extensive list, but missing from that has been member input as to the difficulties that we experience in terms of multi-agency or rather antisocial behaviour. And again, I look at 3.9, use of data intelligence is key in helping inform our partner approach. And I think it's at times, and there's reference to on page 16 of the document, MATAC, it would be helpful if built into that there was a feedback to the respective member in terms of what the outcome of MATAC may be, and how these, if any outcome is not attained, then there is a continual review of that with the multi-agency task force, whatever it's called, whatever that acronym stands for. I think, we have missed a trick here in terms of member input into the whole review and where we stand in terms of antisocial behaviour, because inevitably, in my opinion, it's usually the member that gets the first complaint that Gail refers to as being inundated, whether it's dog fouling, whether it's neighbour dispute, whether anything, it's unending. But there is a lack of member input into the review that disappoints me.
Will I just kind of maybe clarify before I let Stephen in? So are you referring to, you remember we used to get members, used to get a regular briefing about antisocial behaviour and how that team had been operating. Are you suggesting, you remember we got reports on that and they were able to comment back to the team. I think that's kind of been parked because of the COVID situation, but are you suggesting that we should resurrect that so that members are kept up to speed what's happening?
I think there used to be I don't know about other areas, but I know in the Wigtonshire area there was a secondment of a police officer to the community safety team, and that particularly focused on antisocial behaviour within the community safety team, is my understanding of it. I think what I'm referring here to is how members in dealing with cases, what information is fed back to them, and I think what I'm saying, in the working group, we missed a trick in terms of what members would expect to, at least I would expect as one, and I would hope the rest would support, in terms of when we're dealing with a case, when I'm dealing with a case, then it's what information is fed back in terms of, if it goes to MATAC, what information is fed back to me as a member, so that I know that it's being dealt with, the outcomes are being looked at, and if they don't attain that outcome,
No, we used to get a ward one. Yes, not the committee one. I'm actually going to ask Brian if he can come in here, because I know there was a police presence in the team up at Cargan Bridge, where it was, or Cargan Towers, we should say. Brian, what's again a police presence? We appreciate you're in the middle of a pandemic and everybody's stretched, but what can you do, or what are you doing just now?
Good morning. Hello, Chair, members. With regards to the reference there to a police officer's secondment, I think that might have ceased about 4 years ago. There was an inspector who was actually seconded to that particular team. What I would say is just with regards to structure and officers, we do have antisocial behaviour officers both in the Galloway side of Dumfries and Galloway and the Dumfries side. Now, those individuals are at the centre of identifying, prioritising that sort of frequency of events, which then actually bring together, obviously, various individuals can contribute to the MATAC. They work very closely with housing providers, and there has been, certainly from a police officer perspective, attendance to deal with some of those matters. So, although they're not seconded, as previously described, they are specific duties. They report to the inspectors, community inspectors in each area, who have an overarching view of the antisocial behaviour and the various facets that we've got recorded in the strategy, and done more so at the moment with regards to our response to certain numerous calls under COVID and breach of regulations as it may be seen by members of the community.
Right, okay. I think, Will, did you want to come back in?
Aye, please. And Brian and I has had this discussion, and likewise with Derek, in terms of information that is fed back to members. That's the issue I'm raising. And I think that through the report, that there's been, there was I think a trick missed in terms of member input into the review. That's all I'm saying, in terms of what a member would expect. And one of the things I would expect is a feedback from the MATAC in terms of an outcome that is reached on any cases being in a member's caseload, that there would be that feedback, rather than it just being part of that MATAC and it continually goes back. So it's the need to know and the right to know, or a member's right to know that information and what's fed back. That would be helpful for me. I don't know about other members, that the issues are being dealt with and this is how it's being dealt with. And I think it's missed in the review.
Right, okay. Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Scobie. Yeah, I think in hindsight, yeah, a member workshop in the development of the strategy would have been, a good idea, and I appreciate that hasn't happened on this occasion. In terms of the MATAC, yeah, I think there's a lot of cases that are obviously discussed in great detail, and there's sensitive information in terms of social work cases, etc. But I think there is some generic points that could be fed back to members on a ward basis following the monthly MATAC meetings. So happy to take that on with colleagues and with Brian himself, so we can see what can be done, and maybe wider than that, as part of the Safer Communities Partnership, we could maybe set up a session with members just about expectation on implementation of the new strategy when hopefully agreed, and what we could maybe improve on in terms of intelligence sharing with members.
Okay. I think that there's a commitment there to take this forward and work with members to actually, yeah, I take the point.
I can't wait till the lawyer's employed, that's all I would say.
Sorry?
A monitoring officer in place, and we know what our rights are as members, because I appreciate what's being said in sensitive information, but we do have rights in this legislation that covers it.
Yeah, but I mean, the right to information after your inquiry is there. It's already there already. Well, it's not something new. Okay, I think we'll need to move this on a wee bit. So I've got Dougie Campbell, Ian Howie and Jim Dempster in that order. And then Jane.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. A question, I suppose, for Stephen and for Brian. And I'm not going to be parochial, but I'm going to mention Loch Ken as an example, and Brian wouldn't expect any less from me on this. I'm interested to know how the strategy applies to antisocial behaviour at our beauty spots across the region. I strongly suspect that COVID has had a part to play in this, and that a lot of people who have been behaving irresponsibly at beauty spots are perhaps not the people that you would normally expect to come into that criteria of being antisocial, but it's a problem nonetheless, and I fully accept that antisocial behaviour is a significant problem in our urbanised areas, and that the relative figures for antisocial behaviour around beauty spots might be statistically very, very low, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a significant impact on that particular area and local communities' aspirations to protect that area. So my question for Stephen and Brian is how does this strategy apply to this phenomenon that I think we're seeing locally, regionally and nationally to deal with antisocial behaviour on our beauty spots? Thanks, Chair.
Do you want me to come in there?
Just go ahead, Brian, yep.
Yep. Councillor Campbell, thank you very much. With regards to the kind of scenic beauty of Dumfries and Galloway, to say it was well visited over the summer would be an understatement, not just in Wales, clearly within the region. With regards to the link to the strategy, with regards to the various facets that's documented on there, I think that probably touches on, not in any sort of detail with regards to the beauty spots. With regards to a prevention, early intervention, that community engagement, moving through to enforcement, I think in general that touches on it. A kind of operational view on how we approach Loch Ken and others is understanding the problem. When we look at Loch Ken and aspects of well camping, for instance, and how that needs to be supported by some potential legislative change, and that's been taken up obviously into the Scottish Government. It covers all that. See we focus on Loch Ken and plans moving forward into next summer, and what we anticipate is a continual staycation. We don't anticipate that there's going to be less visitors to the region. as I understand, even though there may well be a vaccine, public confidence to actually holiday elsewhere might not be realised for a number of years. So we need to, and I had conversations just actually the other day there with my inspectors at both sides of the region, actually look at what the information of last year's behaviours told us, move it forward into this year, and as we know, and you make reference to Law Ken, and that trust itself is well equipped to take matters forward into this summer. It is an interesting one with regards to that sort of police focus on being at the right place at the right time. The large area that we're trying to actually police and support, obviously the communities, and actually maintain the financial benefits that these visitors may well bring, but at the same time not actually affect their behaviours don't affect our communities negatively, has to be borne in mind also. So I see it to be complex, but I think the strategy does cover it, but it comes down to local bespoke plans to actually address certain matters, and that's that data capture from yourselves, what last year told us, and moving forward actually into the well, I anticipate Easter onwards.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Okay with that, Dougie?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's reassuring to know that that the issue around antisocial behaviour at our beauty spots is going to have a continued focus from the police, and I hope that will be in conjunction with the council. Thanks very much, Brian, for your comprehensive answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Ian Howie.
Thanks, Chair. Morning, Brian. Just looking at the strategy, wild camping didn't really, certainly dirty camping didn't appear, and it's making the distinction between dirty camping and wild camping. Wild camping is perfectly legitimate. Dirty camping is all the complaints and all the issues. Now, there is a small section on page 234 and talking about enforcement powers. Well, what enforcement powers are in place, and have you had occasion to use them?
The answer to the enforcement powers is that there is legislation there. The distinction between wild camping and dirty camping, I think, is not always easy for the officers to fully see relative to that legislation. I know the legislation I'm referring to, but I'm at a loss to actually provide it in detail, unfortunately, for this meeting. But the point is absolutely relevant. It's within any sort of response, like I say, we need to build into that, like I say, what that enforcement looks like, the powers and policies available to officers, the bylaws that may or may not be available to us, which includes obviously restrictions on fishing and the like. So that's part of the learning that I certainly intend when we move forward, as I was talking about, into those sort of plans throughout the region that we would need to incorporate. I don't know if that fully answers your question, Councillor.
Brian, that's fine. We can catch up offline sometime. We can discuss it.
No, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ian. I've got Jim Dempster, then Jane, Andrew, and then Sean in that order. And then Pauline after that. Okay, so it's Jim Dempster first.
Thanks, Chair. Very much sympathetic with the views that other members have in relation to what they call wild camping or antisocial camping. And I don't imagine the financial benefit will be great, because many of these folks bring their alcohol and food with them. And that's the real issue. And I'd have to say that officers in my ward try very hard to manage these people. It's really difficult. And that's why I think it's important that this strategy is being discussed today, and that we should maybe have a particular section on wild camping. It's a new phenomenon. And Brian's right, we don't want to chase decent people away, but the hooligans, especially given the COVID-19 situation that we have and the varying levels of control that Scottish Government is placing on different areas of Scotland, it's important these people are discouraged if they are attending they shouldn't be, or come just to disrupt the beauty and the pleasure that others take from these beauty spots. So I'd be keen to see us develop a strategy centred around how we manage this wild camping sort of thing. Another point I'd want to raise, we as a council have installed CCTV in many communities across the region. But we seem to have missed a trick by no allowing the police to remotely access these systems. They're currently ours, and it is a partnership. It should be a partnership approach. And that's going back to the point that Gail raised about dog fouling. It so happened in my high street, and you know, CCTV would absolutely pick these people up. They could be either challenged or punished. A financial penalty, I'm sure, would deter them or encourage them to lift the muck rather than just wander on. And I'd be keen to see how we manage a partnership that would allow the police to access CCTV in all of our areas as and when that would be appropriate to them. And currently I don't think we have that facility or that capacity in place. And the last thing is we maybe be getting reports, or should maybe be getting reports again from our ward managers, because I'm quite sure the areas will differ. The dog fouling will be a region-wide thing, and Willie Scobie's mentioned that, and that's quite right. And it's something we need to address. And I'm like every other member. The biggest issue I have with the members of the public are their concern about the attitude and behaviour of young people, dog fouling, litter, and it's a repetitive thing that we could do with putting an end to. But I think that would help work with the police, partnership, strategy for that, and ward managers feeding into the system. They would get feedback from local members on what was relevant in their particular towns or villages, and that could help inform the strategy, but also it would be a two-way partnership whereby we would learn what the antisocial behaviour teams and the police are doing to rectify issues, and I think that would give comfort to the local community if that was a sort of regular pattern or feature or communication between us all. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much. Jim, I think a lot of things you're talking there about, and Ian and Dougie have been talking about, can be dealt with operationally. And I think I totally get your point as well about using the ward officers to get the information out to people. It's no rocket science. So I think that kind of helps address a wee bit of what Willie's thing was. And I think, and as we take this through, if something becomes a problem that's not covered fully in the strategy, in the monitoring, we can actually, I'm looking at governance here, but properly done, we can make amendments to that strategy, or we can make additions to it. So we could add things to it if we had the evidence to support that. So now I've got Harry Hay wanting to come in. I'm assuming it's about what's just been said, Harry, is it?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was just perhaps to give some specific detail on the CCTV question, only if it's felt helpful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I think certainly from my perspective, we've got a very effective partnership with Police Scotland in terms of CCTV across the region, and there's been considerable investment has went in to develop new infrastructure to the point where that project is almost completed. There's one location in the region that still has to be installed. In terms of Police Scotland accessing the information, my understanding is that we've now got a data sharing protocol in place with Police Scotland, so if they do need to access information at any time, the operational arrangements are in place, and certainly to maximise the potential of the new system, a further development is basically to ensure that there's live recording. That survey is currently getting concluded, that will look at the infrastructure that's there in terms of broadband connectivity, with a view to coming up with a solution that we're obviously very committed to getting in place as quickly as possible. And that will basically mean that there'll be the ability to monitor live real-time footage from anywhere across the region at any time. And obviously if that needs to be captured and used as evidence, which is very much the Department of Police Scotland, that can be done. So I'm quite happy to provide any more detail and or catch up with Brian offline in terms of filling any gaps in any of that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks,
Chair,
Harry. I suppose some form of briefing to all the members would be helpful in that once you've got it all put together. I've got people who've been waiting for quite a while here.
Same point, Chair, just for a second.
Okay, Jim, when you come quickly. Yep.
Thank you very much, Chair. No, just that I have a very good working relationship with the police, and I meet with them regularly, even in these COVID times. And the point they were making to me was the arrangement absolutely is right, as Harry set out. But the customer services centres where the equipment is now located are sometimes closed and not accessible for the police, so they can no longer readily access the images. And it was more about how, and Harry talked about it, how we get broadband to work, whereby the police on a mobile phone in the office could link into the local CCTV system without wandering down the street or without dragging members of staff, council staff out of hours to get into a building to check the images. It's about moving forward with technology, Chair, and we have to say, yes, our CCTV system is fabulous, but it's not being utilised at this moment to best effect. And that's no criticism of anybody, but we just need to move forward with technology. Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the indulgence. Okay, I think that's points well made. And those of us old enough to remember before the Police National Computer was in place had to go to the licensing offices with a key to in a Rolodex. But that's another story for another day. Jane, you've been waiting for quite a while. Do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, those days were long before I was born. Chairman, I want to just very briefly reinforce what members have been saying about Lochken. Community councils, businesses, the public, all have really had, I think, have been actually astonished and appalled by what happened around Lochken. And it's a question of pre-intelligence and prevention and enforcement. And if you're talking about local bespoke plans, then I want to be sure that that's actually going to happen. And for us, in wild areas, Lochken's simply a catalyst. There are lots of other places. Jim's been eloquent on the subject. And so I would really like to see some emphasis put upon this particular problem. Could I also just ask whether or not there is a level of information that comes backwards and forwards between COSLA? There must be other councils who have to deal with exactly the same sort of problem and with the police. And I just wonder if anybody has found a better way of dealing with it.
Councillor Mayor, just with regards to your question with regards to the Lochken, and you're absolutely right of the issues that you've touched upon without getting into sort of detail, that plan was put in place over the summer. The effectiveness of the plan with regards to just working with so many people and actually the new aspects of behaviours is debatable. The plan was in place there and it was implemented with the Lochken Trust and the activity, police activity, fire service activity. We did some joint working with them. Yes, that was the case. With regards to kind of national, from a police perspective, the way we've actually linked is we've linked in with through the divisional commander through to the operational superintendent Hollis with other divisions, rural divisions, and actually there are similarities in behaviours and how we could actually collectively take best learning. So we do have those links within Police Scotland. You're right, the issues are not unique to Lochken or Dumfries and Galloway as a whole. The ability to actually deal with those huge volumes of people, and they were huge, and probably a small percentage were causing real issues for us as a challenge. But we're up for that challenge and we'll maintain that challenge moving into next year against that sort of joint working and understanding what we did face earlier this year.
Okay, thanks very much, Brian. I'll move on now. Andrew, again, you've been waiting patiently. Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Completely agree with what elected members have said so far. Big problems out there. Fly tipping is one of the upward coming problems that we're finding, and some of this could be to do with operational processes that have changed within our dumps. Now, I'm not sure whether if the council could look at making it more readily accessible or not, but maybe it's something that could be considered. Fully appreciate the restrictions with COVID, but it's really since this has happened that we're starting to see this increase in fly tipping and lay-bys and farm gateways, etc. On surveillance, I would like to see if there's a possibility of utilising mobile surveillance more, because that might help us with the likes of Mennock Pass or even Castle Dykes Park that we saw in the paper just the other day there, you know, in trying to catch these youngsters that are causing mayhem. So I don't know what the thoughts are.
Stephen, any comment on that?
Thanks, Chair. In terms of the fly tipping, there was certainly a large spike during COVID restrictions and when the waste recycling centres weren't open at that point, and we were aware that that was a major problem. Now that waste recycling centres are back open again, I don't think the problem's as big an issue as what it was, but we're very conscious that it's still out there and happy to work with waste colleagues and other partners to see what we can now do to address the concerns, Chair.
Yeah, because I'm aware at times we've looked through rubbish that's been fly tipped to try and trace owners or barcodes and stuff like that, and that's happened in the past. So I suppose again it's a case of how many folk have we got on the ground at any given time, and you know, yeah, so it's difficult, isn't it? So I'm not really expecting you, unless you want to come back and say something, Stephen.
Yeah, it was just in the links to the previous issues that have been raised about emerging issues that are happening in communities. And yes, we've got the strategy, but we've got the second document, which is the annual work plan. And that does incorporate mention of wild camping, etc. And that's a very flexible document that will be reported back, certainly on an annual basis, to this committee. But even on a monthly, quarterly basis, if there's new issues that are arising, then that document can be amended readily to capture projects that need to be put in place to address local concerns or hotspots. So I just thought I would clarify the difference between the two documents, Chair.
Thanks. Just Andrew asked about mobile. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it's mobile surveillance, because we have used them in the past, but they seem to have kind of lapsed in their use.
So, I mean, by that, are you meaning sort of cameras planted somewhere? Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, would we normally do that unless it was a long-standing or big problem? When would we tend to use that kind of method? Do you want in, Brian? I see you hovering there.
Yep, I thought Stephen was going to say something. No, we've not used it in recent times. The RIPS of development challenges round about that and the ISO information. It's a tactic, clearly, if it's available to us, and the technologies there, as the council's touched on before, it is not an easy process to get that sort of authority. In fact, it's extremely difficult. The general aspect of Dougie Pass has been referenced there. I'm unsure if we would satisfy the authority level for that particular aspect of it, just because it's not specific, probably to an individual, be very general. So it is difficult to achieve. It is a bit more available through householders. If we're looking at actually back into the more conventional type of ASB, they may use themselves, but certainly from ourselves to gain that sort of RIPA authority can be extremely difficult.
Yeah, and I suppose you can't go on a fishing trip every time, can you? I think that's kind of what you're saying. Listen, I've got three people still to come in: Sean, Pauline and Ian Blake, and then I think we've given it a fair old crack. So we'll go Sean first, then Pauline, then Ian, and then we'll go to the recommendations.
Thanks, Chair. With the restrictions and just mentioned there about the cameras, it used to be quite an effective way of combating against dogfall, but I realise there's some problems with regards to that now with the mobile cameras. It has been for the last year or so. My issue, though, is probably the number one issue that most councillors get is with regards to antisocial behaviour. It's dog fouling. Now, within the communities committee remit, we also are responsible for cemeteries. Now, only last week, I had a distraught mother whose daughter's grave had experienced dog fouling on it. And to my knowledge, I don't think there's any restrictions at the moment on dogs entering cemeteries. And I'm just wondering, going forward, if we can look within the strategy to look at some sort of restrictions, whether it's dogs have got to be kept on leads, improve the signage. But, you know, one way of trying to prevent dog fouling is restricting areas where dogs can go. And this is a very sensitive area, as you can imagine. So I just wanted your thoughts on that. What restrictions are in place at the moment? I don't think there's any. And what can we do to kind of combat that?
John, just before I let Stephen come in, personal experience, I had a complaint very similar to that, and it was about one of the cemeteries, not in my ward right enough, what they did was they put some signs up and it seems to have stopped the problem. Stephen or Brian, Stephen I would think coming in this.
Thanks, Chair. I noticed a comments came in that there's signage up and requiring dogs to be on leads, but I'm happy to work with the asset managers just to check what's in place at all our cemeteries across the region and update members on that. And certainly any proactive measures that need to be put in place in terms of improved signage monitoring, you know, we're happy to incorporate that within the annual work plan to make sure it's targeted, as it's clearly one of the priority issues for members.
I would appreciate that. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks. I think maybe we need to send a very clear message that pet owners who allow their pets to desecrate graves will be dealt with seriously. It's reprehensible, to be honest with you. Okay, I had kind of lost for words with that one. Pauline, you've been waiting very patiently. Do you want to come in?
That's okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Brian and Stephen, for the presentations and for the report. Over the course of the summer, I think the biggest issues, apart from myself and Councillor Maitland and Councillor Campbell have had, are also horrendous reports living in such a rural area in a ward that we do, of sheep attacks, masses of people staycationing who possibly don't understand the Scottish Outdoor Access Code. I think it's really difficult for us within Dumfries and Galloway to get that across, and it will continue to be a massive problem next year. Brian, I'm wondering if there could be more of a strategic Scottish-wide policy to get the communications across. In terms of farmers, a lot of farmers I have been speaking to have put up their own notices asking people to shut gates and keep their dogs on leads and stick to the side of fields. But we know it doesn't happen. The notices get ripped down. You know, when I did the 500 earlier this year, there was quite a lot of signage and posters in shops explaining to people that gates must be kept shut and so on and so forth. And whilst I really would like to thank you for the work you've done up at Loch Ken, I think going forward we're going to have to be ready for next summer, and hopefully we can look at more of a Scottish-wide policy to get the Scottish Outdoor Access Code across to people. And no disrespect to anyone coming from towns, but they do have a slightly lower level of understanding as to how we work in the countryside. So I'd appreciate yourself, and as Councillor McGregor and Councillor Scobie have pointed out, possibly including us earlier on would be a good plan forward. So thank you very much for your time on that.
Thank you. I don't think we need any responses on that, Pauline. Your point's well made. Ian Blake is the last contributor, and then we'll go to the recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points. The first one, when you mentioned about the police having the keys for the DVLA, yeah, I could certainly vouch for that. That did happen. I would certainly contest the fact that it was before Councillor Maitland was born, but however, that's another matter. The second one, a lot of we're talking about the strategy and the CCTV and the various different agencies. There's one thing that we as a council have missed. For many years, we had a community safety partnership that was highlighted in Audit Scotland report as being an area of good practice. And yet, 2017, after the elections, it died a death. It just disappeared. There were no council decision to take that away, and it was a body that we brought all departments, all the other agencies together. At times it could be a bit of a talking shop, so I was going to question a little bit that myself, but I think it's maybe such a time to look again, not necessarily creating a community safety partnership to look at all these strategies, but we all know that the Police and Fire Committee the agendas are very light, to say the least. If we look at some of the other areas, I know Fife used to, I'm not so sure if they do now, but they had a Police, Fire and Community Safety Committee. And I don't know, it's maybe worth considering looking at the future, just to widen the remit of the Police and Fire Committee to include all community safety matters.
I think that's well made, Ian, but I think that's one for the review subcommittee to bring forward back to full council, I would suggest, rather than here. But I don't think your point's a million miles away. It seems very sound. Is there anything you need an answer for there? Stephen, do you want to come in?
Just on, there's certainly plans to have a safer communities partnership as part of the community planning model. I think that has been delayed just due to the COVID challenges, but I know there's a plan to have maybe a couple of meetings a year, theme meetings involving all partners involved in that work stream. So happy to keep members updated on that.
Thanks, Stephen. Just to kind of round this up a wee bit, for me, one thing that's coming across here, almost from every speaker, it's about how do we educate, public learning and awareness training or signage and a whole raft of things here. So I'm actually seeing a campaign that we should be entering into quite a low, not a high cost one, but we could get some message across quite simply, quite cheaply, to make sure people keep their dogs in leads. And see, you're right, people letting their dogs off in countryside is an ASBO situation. I think, yeah, I'm with you on that. So we can take that forward as we review this, Stephen, and the way forward. So are we, recommendations, are we happy to agree the antisocial behaviour for 2020 to 2024? Okay, I'm not seeing any counter to that, so thanks very much. Brian, thank you for your time this morning. That's it, and thanks, Stephen.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Actually, the time given to that reflects what most of us actually get in our constituencies, in our wards, litter, dog dirt, never ending, is it? Okay, so we'll move on to item number 12, the Inclusive Play Project update. Report provides members with an update in relation to the 3 remaining Inclusive Play projects. Nicola Simpson is available through Teams to take any questions on the report. You there, Nicola?
I am, thank you, Chair, yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hang on a second. John Young, you've got your hand up. Is there a problem?
No, I just want to speak on this particular topic and get my hand up early. Thanks.
All right. You're first on the list, John. Well done. Right, Nicola, sorry, have you anything to add to this, or are you quite happy to go to questions?
Just a quick update for members, if I can. It's just to advise that since the report was written, the tender process has been completed for the project in Annan. 4 tenders were returned, and these were reviewed by myself, ward officers and the Annan Apps group at a socially distanced meeting last week, and a scheme was chosen. So I'm now currently completing the approval process so that we can place an order. So all being well, I can confirm that we're on track for work to start in the new year as tabled in the report. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that good news, Nicola. Open this up to questions. John Young was first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Nicola and the team of officers for this very factual report, which I believe clearly highlights concerns regarding the lack of progress in obtaining the £125,000 match funding for the very important inclusive play park for the people of Castle Douglas. And, you know, particularly in challenging times, if the community had an open and fully operating inclusive play park at the moment, what a tremendous asset that would be ongoing as we work our way through this time. As a comment, I do hope when this comes back to the Communities Committee again in February, I hope we're able to see a much healthier financial report well on the way to obtaining the match funding. Thank you.
Okay, John, I think that's more a statement, no question for Nicola. I've got Sean Marshall and I think Ian Blake. Are you wanting in this? Sean first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was really just to say, you know, after Nicola's report there, then really just as someone involved with the APS and Play Park Steering Group, it's been a bit longer. We've encountered a number of problems, but thanks to the likes of Nicola, Jamie Nicholson and Richard Grieveson, we've got a way forward now, and hopefully that will be implemented by the end of the year. I will say as well, though, that what we have been able to do with council investment is actually improve the services at Newton Sports and Leisure Centre by putting the change in places toilet in there. So this was a facility that was maybe under threat a few years ago. And I think the fact that the play park, where it's positioned, should sustain the long-term future of the sports and leisure, and hopefully also increase usage at the centre as well. So it's really just to place my thanks to the officers involved.
Thanks, Sean. I don't think that needs any response for Nicola. Ian Blake, do you want to come in? Sorry, Ian Blake. Yeah, I think it is from the previous item. Has anybody else got any questions for Nicola on this? Willie?
Yeah, Chair, it's really just to seek reassurance. I know this is inclusive play project, and as one, and I pay tribute to Ronnie Nicholson in this and bringing it forward many years ago. And we in Stranraer benefited from that, and yourself opened the inclusive play park, and it's extensively used. And it, you know, so for any other area and moving on that, then I would encourage that. It's just to say that it doesn't prejudice, you know, this report doesn't prejudice some of the other works that are going on within the play parks, because there's other parts, features in the play parks that are needing developed. So this does not prejudice the other works. Just a reassurance on that.
No, I think it was to focus them, Willie, because it'd been kind of dragging on a wee bit. I think I don't think anybody in the, has got any objections at all to these things developing. So I think we're comfortable with that. I'm just looking. John Young, your hand's still up. Do you want to speak again, or are you historic, is it? No response for John. Okay, I don't think there's anybody else want to come in here. So I'm happy to go to the recommendations. We're asked to note the financial and physical progress on the projects to date as detailed. And in 2.2, agree to receive a further detailed progress report in February to enable members to decide whether to reallocate the budget for Castle Douglas inclusive play development to 2021-2022 as detailed within section 3.9. It's not to replace it, it's to take it forward. Yep. Clear with that? Yep. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Nicola.
Thank you.
We move on to item number 13, the gull control project. The report advises members of new restrictions for the control of gulls and to seek agreement for proposals for a new method and scope of delivery. I think we should have Sandra Harkness here, available through Teams to take any questions on the report. You're there, Sandra?
Yes, Chair, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay, Sandra, do you want to add anything, or are you quite happy to go to questions?
Nothing to add, Chair, and happy to go to questions.
Thank you very much. Have we got anybody got? Pauline, do you want in?
Can you hear me, Chair? Am I here? Yes, I'm back here. Sandra, I would just like to thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sandra, for the report, and also to Derek Crichton and the team for including the smaller towns and communities in the Gull project. As you know, we've been fighting hard. You and I have had a lot of communication over the last few months with videos and film footage and things. May I just read out this bit just so I can check for everyone in the smaller communities where we'll be covered on this one, please? So, Sandra, the Scottish Natural Heritage Licence states that the licence only authorises activities for the purposes of preserving human health and safety where there is no other satisfactory course of action. And I'm sorry to talk about my own ward, but obviously the numbers are slightly lower per capita head of population. It's probably about right. But in Kirkcudbright, residents of Castledykes Road, Buchanan Street and Melbourne Street are actually terrified to leave their homes due to swooping and attacks. And in fact, I've just heard this morning that one house sale has fallen through due to the enormity of the problem. So really today, and I'm sorry to pressurise you in this, but what I'm asking our council and the community protection team is to confirm that the Gull project for the smaller outlying areas of Kirkcudbright, Annan and Stranraer will actually consist of proactive and preventative measures, please, going forward. Thank you very much for your time and for your work on this project and for recruiting someone to look into it.
Sandra,
Thank
do you
you,
want to...
Councillor Drysdale. Yes, the licence will need to be amended if we're going to extend it beyond Dumfries, because currently it does just cover Dumfries. But the point of having a dedicated officer for the duration of the year, all year round, is so that proactive and preventative measures can be taken where they're needed. And if we have a population, if we have a street, which I know Councillor Drysdale does have, of people who are terrified, then these will be areas that we would look to take action if we had the appointed officer to do so.
Am I able to come in again, Chair?
Yeah, of course, Pauline, yeah, come in.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, I just think we really need to make sure it's not just that one street, Sandra, because actually at the moment with Johnson Centre just being set up and children coming in and out of that new centre all the time, it is actually causing a public health danger to children and visitors. Again, it's going to get very busy next year, and I appreciate there might be somebody that's able to talk to the residents about putting spikes on top of their homes and on their chimneys. But as I say, it's the two areas in Kirkcudbright that are really badly affected just now. So much so that some of the residents have actually had to donate money to other homes where families are unable to find the funding, to put spikes and things on top of their homes. So I'm sure the other areas are just as bad, but I really would push hard that we really need this in Kirkcudbright at the moment, and I'm sure the other areas as well, Sandra. But thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Pauline. I've got Jim Dempster, Woolley, and then Dougie Campbell. Jim?
Thanks, Chair. I have no issue with the report at all. In fact, it's a good report. I have an issue, though, about restricting the works in the first instance to some of the more major towns. And I have a reason for this, Chair. In Sanquhar, there is a pond or a lake owned by Dumfries and Galloway Council, where there's a raised safe area in the middle of the pond that protects the gulls from predators and other individual or things that might disrupt them. We are, as a consequence, breeding hundreds of gulls to send them down to Kirkcudbright or Dumfries or wherever. But if you look at paragraph 24 in page 266, there's a clear reason why we should be addressing this issue in Sanquhar. If we remove the soil, they've been able for the gulls to breed, they would go away elsewhere. At this moment, we have a region-wide scheme. I don't think we have a policy that maybe we should be developing so that we can progress with a degree of certainty what happens where and when, but I think we should be targeting resources to best effect. This community is disrupted. It's a duck pond. The young ducklings are being killed. Folks are being disrupted. Sandra has been contacted just this week by a constituent of mine, as has the other 2 elected members for this ward. There's been a campaign locally. They've been at community council. I've spoken to EE and I about this issue before, and I've spoken to senior managers quite recently. So I think that this is a council responsibility. This is not giving money to individuals to protect their chimneys or rooftops or whatever, and I have no objection to that. It's a practice that we've developed over time. What I'm saying is, if not included in this policy today or this document today, I would want an assurance from Sandra that she and I will work together to resolve this local issue, which is a breeding ground, there's no question about that, and it's a council-owned facility. Therefore, the council have a responsibility to ensure that wildlife and the communities are protected in Sanquhar the same as would be elsewhere. I don't usually become so outspoken about my own corner, Chair, but I think this is very important. And if it were done with the document here, fine. But I would want to speak to Sandra with a view to progressing this, and that be done in conjunction with ward officer and whoever else needs to be present. But we have to resolve this issue, and there is an absolute benefit to the wider community if these birds are displaced. Thanks for your time, Chair, and I look forward to a response from Sandra and hopefully a meeting in due course.
Thanks, Jim. Just before, I don't know if Sandra wants to come and answer that, but my reading of this, of course, is that we're quite rightly highlighting Annan, Stranraer and Kukubri because that's what the survey tells us. But it's not exclusive, I think, is the answer really here. So anywhere where there is a problem, then you contact Sandra's team and we do something about it, if we're able to. I think that's the proviso I'd put in that. Sandra, do you want to add into that?
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. I only became aware of this Sanquhar issue yesterday, and had I been aware of it prior to that, then we may well have included it in the gull count. But the purpose of the gull count was really just to determine if this was a Dumfries town centre problem, as it has been historically considered to be so, or if it was actually wider. So just because we chose those 4 towns, they were towns that we knew there was a problem because we had received complaints, but it doesn't mean that we can't look at other towns. We would certainly react where there's a problem. And from what Councillor Dempster has said and from what I learned yesterday, yeah, there's definitely something to consider in Sanquhar, and we would certainly, I would make assurances that we would do that.
Okay.
Absolutely delighted, Chair. Thank you for that, and thanks very much, Sandra.
Okay.
And apologies, Chair, I have an urgent appointment that I need to take up. I will catch up with you later and explain. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. I'm assuming, Sandra, as well, you'll speak to all 3 ward members, not just one, about the gull problem in Sanquhar. Thanks. Willie and then Dougie Campbell.
Can I start off by saying I have every sympathy with Sandra because I think we're on catch-up. And I go back to Greg, was it Greg Blaney? Richard Greaveson, and I'll refer to Stranraer in particular, where we had a programme that was never delivered and Greg retired. So I think that Sandra, you are very much on catch-up. I'm looking at 311 and what you say, and you could be correct in that Stranraer there was only 1 complaint, but you rightly point out that as members we have continually been brought to our attention, as does the local paper, in terms of the council not dealing with a particular problem. And it seems to come back to the council, although we've got housing estates that register social landlords, and they all face the same problem. I'm looking at the document that went along with this, and Sandra, I failed to see in the report and in the document how we're going to tackle this problem when the legislation is very much fighting against dealing with a particular problem, and I think that they're referred to as it rats of the sky. And they do cause problems throughout wherever there's a large conurbation of them in our urban areas, in the towns, and so forth. And I was only shown a Facebook post last night where the people in Kirkcudbright actually, and maybe Pauline could talk about this, where the people in Kirkcudbright actually were demonstrating, and the suggestion was that somehow Stranraer and Kirkcudbright got together to try and fight this. I'm not seeing how we're going to do this, because the legislation is against this, the manipulation of reproductive cycles. I'm looking at that, how we're going to do it, and some are plus and some are minuses in how we're going to tackle it. So I think it does become an area by area, and we do sit down with you, Sandra, and your team, because how monitoring the situation is going to start to tackle it, because there are still people who are frightened of attack by the gulls. They're constantly harassed by the noise from any time in the morning going through, and they do attack some of the features, as I have heard, in people's gardens in terms of the ponds and so forth. So nowhere in the report I think that we've got to find a solution, because at one time, when it was the EEI under the previous director, Alistair Speedy, it was talked of netting council buildings in Stranraer. That was the Ryan Centre, the schools and so forth, because where you've got solar panels, you've in a greater problem with the gulls nesting in below. And that was to try and stop it. And I see even here that you've got them to net them properly, or you could be causing other problems in terms of any of the gulls or birds that get caught in the net. So I think we need to take it area by area and see what effective measures are being taken to deal with it, because I don't see it in the report, and that's not a criticism of you, Sandra. It's saying what area by area positions are we taking to deal with a particular problem, because I don't see anything in here, and I think we need that to come out of the report, and maybe taken back to area committee or committees to say each of the areas how we're effectively going to do it. Because I'm looking at the legislation, I'm looking at the things that mitigate against what could be done, and how monitoring is going to deal with the problem is beyond me.
Sandra, have you any comment on that?
Yeah, I can absolutely sympathise. It has become more difficult to deal with gulls due to the change to the licence. Gulls are a protected species, and we have to be aware of that and be sensitive to that fact. But by having a resource available throughout the whole year and not just during the breeding season, it would allow us to make contact with people who have buildings that are susceptible to the gulls nesting on them, and to try and work with them for them to take measures, whether that's the council taking measures on its own buildings or other privately owned buildings. People have a duty to do this, to protect their own buildings and to prevent a nuisance and public health to those around them. So we would hope to work with people to try and make the buildings that are normally nested on unattractive places to nest on. And then by collecting up nesting debris after the breeding season, that would hopefully prevent them the previous years. So whilst things are much more difficult now, if we prevent the nesting in the first place, then we're not bound by the restrictions of the licence, because it's about moving the gulls away and managing the gull population.
Thanks, Sandra. I'm going to bring in Dougie, and then I think we need to kind of wind this up. Dougie?
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. Similar to Pauline and I guess Jane, I've had quite a lot of inquiries about gulls, and I was aware this report was coming forward, so I was waiting to see what would be contained within it. But I've got a couple of questions for Sandra on the actual the sort of scope of the project. Now, SNH have changed the licensing conditions in reference to last resort. I'm not entirely sure, Sandra, what the extent or the full explanation is of what constitutes a last resort, other than reference to public protection or safety. And I think it's important because people will have an expectation that, and particularly in Kirkcudbright, I suppose, but elsewhere, that the council will respond to this, and they might not necessarily like the response that they get. So, are you able to provide a sort of an expanded explanation of what last resort is? And the other factor is, the other question is, as well as the nesting opportunities, I think gulls are attracted to places like Dumfries, Stranraer, and Kirkcudbright because of a ready food supply. And I think there's a part for our communities to play in this in terms of limiting that food supply, whether it's around waste or discarded takeaway food, for example. So in terms of rolling this out, is there going to be a piece of work in terms of educating people in terms of what they can do practically to reduce the opportunity and the attraction for seagulls to nest in this area?
Sandra?
If I could take the second question first about education. If we have a dedicated resource, if we have an officer to do this, then education will be a major part of the work, because I absolutely agree that unless people stop disposing of food inappropriately, then there's always going to be a food supply for the gulls, and that is what attracts them. Apparently they can fly 100 kilometres just for a food source, so that's got to be one of the first steps, and that certainly would be a very important role for this officer. And in terms of it being a last resort, for the first question, we need to prove to SNH that we have taken steps. And one of those steps would be education. And then we have to prove that we've taken preventative steps, and we have to detail what we've done. So if we've taken as many preventative steps as are reasonably practicable for whichever area, and we provide that information on our returns to SNH, then we will, as a last resort, to be able to take the further steps of the gull control measures that are licensed.
Okay, thanks, Sandra. Is that enough, Dougie? Yep.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chair. Thanks, Sandra.
Okay, in that case then, I've got no one else wanting to speak. I see Jane has come on the chat endorsing the action with respect to gull nuisance, which is very helpful. So we'll go to the recommendations. 2.1, note the new SNH licensing conditions. That's the first thing. And then 2, agree the proposal for a revised method and scope of delivery of the gull control project. That's set out in 310 to 314 and includes an extension of the project beyond Dumfries to include Annan, Stranraer and Kirkcudbright, but that is not exclusive. It's able to be anywhere where officers see there's a problem. Right, Willie?
Chair, could I just add a further recommendation, and that's to refer the report to the area committees with a detailed programme of how the problem will be tackled. And then it will allow the area committees to see and people have the confidence that we are actually doing our best, our utmost to tackle this problem, so that the report be referred to the area committees with a detailed programme of how we're going to do it. And that could be some of the stuff that Sandra's already spoken of.
Sandra, do you currently report to area committees just now for other things?
Not on this subject.
Not yet, but on other things, yeah.
No.
So it could be included in that.
Putting the recommendations that goes to the area committees, Chair, and then we can see and we can get more detail of how we're doing it area by area.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying, Willie, we could add it, the recommendations to add it to the reporting for Sandra's team to area committees. Derek, do you want governance?
Chair, probably feature in the community's performance reporting, anyway, 6 months performance reporting, I'm thinking.
Obviously, in the hands of members, all I would caution is capacity at this present time. Additional reports to area committees is considerable in terms of capacity. The importance of the information is essential, that's understood, but the reporting of this to one place in this committee, as we've said earlier, there's no issue at all with separate briefings to ward members, that's quite clear. But the capacity of 4 more committee reports at the present time certainly stretches resources. I'd rather have the resources out there doing the work, and it's essential that they do that. So in the hands of members with that context, Chairman.
I think that's what I'd recognise, Derek. I'll let you in a minute, Willie. I'd recognise that, and that's why I was suggesting it be included in the normal reporting processes for Sandra's cycle to area committee.
Chair, I think it was suggested that that the next would be a 6-month cycle, and unfortunately the problem's not going to go away, and nor are the gulls. And just to the point that Derek's making is, I'm just asking for this report. The report's already been done, and all that needs to be added is the detail in each of the area committees of how it's going to be tackled. And it might be the same throughout the whole 4 areas. So I do see that area by area we can then see, and for the people that we represent to then see that we're serious, as it is, I don't see it in the report. I'd rather see the detail with the programme, because I said at the beginning I am in catch-up because we had so many promises made in the past and never delivered. And I think this is maybe the fall foul of the same response.
I'm kind of looking for governance advice here, because just a second, John. Because I just want to be absolutely clear here. Are you suggesting this report then goes to area committee?
Along with the detail of the programme, Chair, and it may be one for all 4 areas following the same programme, or it could be different things.
Chair, I've lost track of how much time we have spent on this, and we're going to come down to discussion on who's considering the report. There are 6 monthly monitoring reports on communities' activities to area committees. Area committees are well within their rights to request further reports as required on local issues, and I think that matter is settled. In my own personal view, I think we should move on at this point.
Hello. I'm in agreement with that. So I'm moving the recommendations. 2.1, are we noting the Scottish National Heritage licensing conditions for the control of gulls? Yep. 2.2, agree the proposal for a revised method and scope of delivery of the gull control project, which includes an extension of the project beyond Dumfries to Annan, Stranraer and Kirkcudbright. Happy with that?
I'm happy to move, Chair, a further recommendation. I'll refer the report to the area committee with a detailed programme of how the problem will be tackled. I'm happy to move that as a further recommendation.
Have you got a seconder?
Chairman Ian Crothers, can I get a point of clarity, please?
Yes, Ian, what is it?
In regards to a paper like that being presented to the area committee, any of the area committees, the delegation and remit to that particular area committee is able to consider this particular report. It's a conversation we've had at Review Stand Order Subcommittee, we've had at area committee levels, and it's certainly something that's on high on my agenda in regards to what an area committee can and cannot consider. So that's a governance question in real terms, Chair. Is it something that it's not really a competence thing, I'm just wanting to understand if is what Councillor Scobie is proposing able to be considered at area committee.
That was my point exactly, Ian, and I'm looking at governance here for advice, is, and she's just double checking the standing orders. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but I think it's not competent, but and I think that the contribution of Councillor Wilson is valid, because that area committee can ask for a report if it wants.
I don't really want to do that too long, Chairman, but I think the point is that each individual member, singly or collectively, can raise a particular agenda item to committee as well. And all I'm thinking is that if in this particular case,
Councillor Scobie cannot legitimately call for that through this process, then I think there's other routes open to him, and I certainly would be getting my support for that point of view.
That's exactly my understanding as well, but I'm just looking for governance direction.
Yes, certainly as I outlined earlier, area committees receive service performance reports at area level on a twice yearly cycle.
That's the position. So the amendment isn't competent at this time then, so there's a different route for Councillor Scobie to take that to the area committee. He would have to employ a different method. Is that a fair summation?
Yeah. Of course, there can be instances where a service committee has requested area committee input into sort of push a piece of work forward, but certainly the scrutiny aspect by the area committee delegations is within the performance reports.
Okay, so it's within the performance reports. That's the delegation just now. You'll need to find another route, Willie, I think, is the answer. Okay.
I'm happy still to move, Chair.
I don't think it's competent. We've just had advice. Okay, so in that case, it will come to the area committee as per the delegations just now. Okay, yeah. Okay, so point 2. Okay.
Can I note my dissent?
Can you note dissent if there's not been a vote? Yes. Right. Okay. Yes, no bother, Willie. Okay. It's 10 to 1. I'm aware lunch should be no far away. Is it here, is it? The next report, well, we can take it because we can have lunch at 5 or 10 past if need be. Yeah. Okay, so we'll take item 14 now, and that's the Youth Work Service Quality and Standards Annual Report. Report is for members to scrutinise and agree the Council's Youth Work Service Quality and Standards Annual Report for 2019-20. Kelly Ross is available through Teams to take any questions on the report. Yeah, there, Kelly.
Yep, here.
Thank you. Are you anything to add? Are you happy to go to questions?
Happy to move straight to questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, any questions? Tracy?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a question, it's more of a comment, an actual grateful comment. This is an excellent report. From the outcomes, the personal quotes from the young people themselves, case study clearly highlights the significant impact our youth work on the lives of our young people. It shows our youth work department are continuing to work tirelessly, endeavouring to create a better level playing field for every young person so that everyone has opportunities. Chair, I'd like to highly commend and sincerely thank Kelly, Mark and every one of their team for all that they do. Without this work, things would be a lot bleaker for many of our young people, that's for sure.
Thanks, Tracy. I think that's echoed across the chamber, I would suggest. Andrew, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I echo those statements. What I'd like to ask, though, is we had a meeting with the Youth Council. When's the next one arranged for? I thought it was every 6 months. Was that right?
I'll ask the young person's champion to come in here, Kelly, unless you want to answer yourself. Adam, do you want to come in?
I think we had agreed to do it annually, and we're just trying to put in preparations for all best and worst case scenarios at this moment in time. But of course, there's absolutely no reason why individual elected members can't get in touch with the Youth Council via Kelly or Mark if there's particular issues that they want to discuss. But that planning is ongoing for all possibilities to try and make sure that will be able to happen in one form or another in February or March.
Thanks for that clarity. Adam, anyone else? No. Okay, let's... Pauline's no got her hand up. Where is she? She's no in this chat. Pauline, you got your hand
sorry,
up?
Chair. Sorry,
Okay,
Chair, I meant to
Pauline, come in.
Just to say, I would reiterate Councillor Little's points to both the teams for the good communication as well that you've carried out over the last few months. And Mark, with regards to the bigger groups, well, both of you, that can now meet, can we just make sure that maybe going forward we can look at the Johnson Centre and other centres across the region and the more rural areas to make sure that kids can meet up again safely, albeit out with school times, because I know how much they appreciate it. But thank you again for the hard work you've both done.
Thanks for that. Yeah, absolutely. I know that Paul had a meeting with the Johnston School last week, so we're definitely moving ahead with that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Pauline, anyone else? No. In that case, then, we'll go to the recommendations, which has been asked to scrutinise and agree the Youth Work Service Quality and Standards Annual Report for 2019-20. I think, following on from the Provost's lead, I think we should be commending that the whole team, Mark, through you and Kelly, for everyone for their efforts over the last year. Been really, really well done. So if you can pass that on, we'd be obliged. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. Bye. I'm looking at item 15. It's 5.2. This is a procedural paper. I think I'm going to take it just now and I'll get it out of the way. So the Flood Risk Management Scotland Act 2009, we have a duty as a council to publish a local flood risk management plan every 6 years, setting out actions to manage flood risk for the Solway Local Plan District, or the LPD. The first cycle plan was published in 2016, and accordingly the second cycle plan needs to be completed and published in June 2022. The report asks members to note the progress made for cycle 2 and agree to receive a future report approving the plan that will be consulted on publicly in March 2021. I've got Brian Templeton available through Teams to take any questions on the report. Brian, is there anything you'd like to add, or are you just happy to go to questions?
No, I'm happy to go to questions, Chair.
Thanks, Brian. Pauline, your hand's up. Is that historical? Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Chair, thanks.
No, it's okay. Right, I mean, this is a procedural paper, isn't it, really? I'm not seeing anybody wanting to come in. So are we happy just to go to the recommendations and allow the team to take this forward? Yeah. So that's 2.1, agree to receive the report in February 2021 for the final review of the draft Solway Local Plan District Local Flood Risk Management Plan prior to public consultation in March 2021, and then 2.2, agree to receive a future report to this committee following completion of the consultation process. You happy with that? Okay, thank you very much. At that then, I'm going to suspend the meeting for lunch. Just before we do, can we be absolutely sure that all the members on the committee have the papers for the extra item? Have they've had it? Yeah, so we've had that. And there's a paper copies for the members here today. Thanks very much. Now, given there's a paper to read, I'm going to suggest we take a wee bit longer for lunch, but because there's a bit to do. It's 1 o'clock now. Let's make it 20 to 2. It's an extra 10 minutes, all right? So we'll reconvene at 1:40. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, okay, thank you. Good afternoon. That's us resuming the Communities Committee. Same riders apply as earlier about how you want to speak and stuff. So we'll move on to item number 16, which is the Dumfries and Galloway Region-wide Coastal Benefit Fund for 21-22, report by the Community Planning and Engagement Manager to invite members to agree the arrangements for the Region-wide Coastal Benefit Fund in 21-22. I've got Derek Hextall available through Teams to take any questions on the report. You there, Derek?
Yes, your chair.
Have you anything to add? Are you...
Chair, just I've made a slight clerical error at 2.1 in the recommendations. I've referenced paragraph 3.2. It should be paragraph 3.3. Other than that, I've nothing further to add, Chair, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Derek. I'm looking for members coming in. I have to say this was an excellent seminar we held to take this forward. So, I've got no hands up. Nobody. The Sleepy Joe's here. Okay, so in that case then we'll just go to the recommendations. 2.1, note the allocation for 21-22 set out in paragraph 3.3 as amended of £416,620 and a penny, available to this council to deliver a fund to benefit coastal communities in the region. In 2.2, consider and agree the draft guidance and criteria as detailed in the appendix and the scoring framework is set out in paragraph 312. And then finally, to agree the arrangements and timescales outlined in paragraphs 311 to 313. We all agreed? Thank you very much, Derek. Thanks very much. And it really was an excellent seminar on that.
Thanks, Chair.
Moving on to item number 17, the Region-wide Community Fund Annual Report for 2019-20. Report is for members to approve the annual report on the Region-wide Community Fund, or RWCF, for 2019-20. James Perker is available through Teams to take any questions on the report. James, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. Have you anything you want to add, or are you just happy to go to questions?
Nothing to add. Happy to go to questions.
Okay, thank you. I see Jane's comment on the last one looks fine to me. That's good. That'll be noted, Jane. Anything on the community fund? The Regional-wide Community Fund? No? Needs a ride this afternoon, folks. Of course, this is a good news story. And yet again, James, some really good work in here by mainly volunteers on that. And there I'm the only council representative. So yep. It's a good piece of work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so are we happy to approve the annual report for the Regional-wide Community Fund for 2019-20? Thank you. Thanks, James. Item number 18 is the Fleet Management Policy. The report seeks members' agreement of the new fleet management policy for the Council. Dumfries and Galloway is committed to ensuring, as far as reasonably practicable, the health and safety of all its employees, including teachers and members of the public who could be affected by transport legislation. Gordon Bryce is available again through Teams to take any questions. You there, Gordon?
I'm here, Chair. Afternoon, members.
Okay, thank.
Just one point to say on the appendices, the page numbers seem to have went a wee bit skew with, but apart from that, happy to go to questions, Chair.
Sorry, could you repeat that a wee bit about, I'd left my mic on, so it didn't come across very clearly.
Sorry, Chair, I was just a wee note to say that on the appendix, on the policy, the page numbers seem to have went a wee bit skew with. I don't know what's happened to them, but apart from that, happy to take questions.
Okay, Dougie Campbell.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Gordon, for this report. I'm particularly pleased. You'll be not surprised to know that we're moving forward with the electrification of our vehicle fleet. And can I just clarify at 332, you make reference to fossil fuel cars no longer being procured. Is that with immediate effect? Or are the sort of years scheduled for each sort of type of vehicle that you've set out? Is that the period over which will electrify vehicles? I'm thinking that probably will be the answer to that. And the other question was in relation to road traffic offences committed by council staff using council vehicles. I couldn't find any reference to this, Gordon, in the report, but do we monitor the points that staff have sort of picked up on their licences, and is there a threshold at which point we have to withdraw their authorisation to drive?
Through yourself, Chair. Councillor Campbell, it's the first point. Electrification of the fleet on cars is as of now, but obviously we won't just go and change all our cars for electric cars. We need to do that, as you rightly say, over a period of time. But what we will do is, if a renewal comes up, then it will be replaced with an electric car. And that's in place for the now. When we come to offences, what we operate with a licence checking system, which is basically like a risk register. So if you have points in your licence, that will flag up to us on the risk register, and it's just traffic light system. There's the whole load of criteria that sits behind that. But what we do as a fleet management department, we'll alert the line manager to what the issue or the problem is, and then we have facilities within that same system to sort of retrain drivers, if you like. It's a series of sort of aptitude tests, I suppose, and then we also have our own in-house qualified driver trainers. So we may go down that route rather than preventing somebody from driving. But if we have to, we can. Hopefully that answers your questions, Councillor Campbell.
Okay, Dougie.
Just very quickly, Gordon, thanks for that clarification. And can I just say again, I really appreciate, and I'm sure all councillors really appreciate, the work you've put in terms of our fleet strategy and how this links into our climate emergency declaration. And I think it really does present a very obvious example to people in the region in terms of the council's commitment to tackling climate change. So thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Dougie. Jean?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I completely echo what Dougie's saying about the electric vehicles. I just really totally endorse that. I'm 110% behind that. And the more the merrier, and let's roll it out as fast as we possibly can. This is something of a hobby horse of mine, and those of you who've been around for a bit will remember the last time I spoke on this issue. Can I possibly ask officers to think really hard before you colour our buses bright yellow and red? It's just so old-fashioned, deeply old-fashioned, really, I mean, sort of says, look, this is a whole load of people who don't normally use, who use a different sort of transport to the rest of us. And really, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be making it as seamless and as acceptable and as modern and updated as we possibly can. And let's face it, you know, all the bus companies, do they have bright yellow and red buses? No, they don't, because people wouldn't want to travel in them. So if we could really think about modernising our colours and moving gradually away from the yellow and red on the road, please.
Dougie, is historic hand that's up, or do you want to come back in? That's okay, thanks, it's come down. Jane, I have a sympathy with what you're saying. Personally, I see it as a missed opportunity for advertising, but or getting messages across for the council if we're going to use our own council vehicles. Anyway, that's a personal view. Anyone else? No, I'm not seeing anybody here at all. So we've been asked to agree the fleet management policy, which is attached to the appendix. Are we happy to agree? Thank you very much, everybody. We move on to item number 19. That's the future arrangements for properties at Thundergarth, Lockerbie. Purpose of the report is for members to consider and facilitate the future development of properties at Thundergarth by a community group. Nicola Simpson and Paul McCulloch are available through Teams to take any questions on the report. Nicola, Paul, is there anything you'd like to add to this, or are you happy to go to questions?
Happy to go to questions for myself.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to go to questions as well.
Thanks very much. So I'm opening up to questions for everybody. Adam?
Thanks, Chair. I'm very supportive of the work that is being done around the Thundergarth Memorial. There's a number of complex ownership, different bits of land and buildings. I think I'm supportive of the memorial room and the old Kirk ruin to be declared surplus, but I think that the Thundergarth Church car park, I don't think at this stage we should be declaring surplus. It is still used and it's in reasonable good condition. Of course, I think it's important to remember there's a number of routes, as outlined in the report indeed, that would still allow for any community group to express an interest in taking ownership of the car park if they so wished and had an ambitious plan for. But I think at this stage we should only be declaring the memorial room and the old Kirk ruin surplus to requirements. Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else? Nope, we're not getting anything here at all. So the only thing we've got here is Adam suggesting that we say that the two buildings are surplus to requirement, but the car park isn't. I think that's to summarise it. Have we got a combined uniform view on that? Is there any alternative proposal? No. So, so in the recommendations then, we'll just go there now. So we obviously support the improvement to the memorial room at the Old Kirk Ruin and the church car park. They note the options available for community organisation 312 and 313 and agree that to allow for a sale of the properties to be one of the options available, the committee declares that the two buildings are surplus to the council's requirements, but the car park is not. So we're absolutely clear. Right, okay, agreed with that? Thank you very much. Let's move on to item number 20, the annual report for civic hospitality. The purpose of the report is for members to approve the annual report on the use of the civic hospitality budget in 2019-20 and consider the position for 2021. Liz Manson is available through Teams to take any questions. Liz, is there anything to add, or are you happy to go to questions?
No, thank you. Happy to go straight to questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Liz? Any comments? I think it's been a frugal approach over the last period, so and I think we should continue that way, to be frank. Bearing in mind the restrictions that apply to us and for social gatherings and things like that. So, that it? Okay then, so we'll go to the recommendations. So we approve the annual report on civic hospitality for 2019-20, paragraphs 340 to 311 and the appendix. Okay, have we agreed? Yeah. Right. Now, As I intimated at the start, I'm going to take an extra item of business. You should all have had a copy of the report to be able to read and digest over lunchtime. Is there any member online or in the room who hasn't had that? Right. Okay, I'm not seeing any negativity there, so we'll take it that you have. So item number 21A. Sorry, Pauline, Ian, which is it? Pauline first, ladies first, then Ian. Yeah.
Oh, you're a charmer, Chair. Sorry, just to let you know, I'm right in the middle of doing an email that I've got to get away, so I haven't actually managed to read that report. So do you want me just to leave the meeting during the discussion of it, Chair? I'm sorry.
No, it's entirely in your hands. If you think you're able to make a considered decision, it's in your hands to make that decision, not mine. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ian?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it was on the same point about the access to the report. I had some difficulty. I could not find it. I tried to get back online during your lunch break, and John Young actually came in and said it's on the Files tab and on Teams. It took me a long time to get that. However, I have got it now, but it's more, I think it would have been beneficial if it had been emailed for those of us that are maybe quite not as high-tech as others.
Absolutely. I see Jane Maitland's actually saying it was not in the Modern Gov app either. So I think that's a learning issue there. But Ian, have you had sufficient time to actually take a view or consider it?
I will do as it goes along. I'm not going to delay your meeting for that. Thank you. Okay,
thank you. Pauline, are you okay with that then as well? It's entirely up to you. I'll leave the judgment to yourself.
I've got hold of it, so it just has taken me a while as well. Ian and I had a look and didn't manage to find it. So yeah, going forward it'd be helpful. But I'm happy to sit and listen in, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Pauline. Okay, so just to reiterate, the late paper is the Infrastructure Capital Programme 2021 Progress Update on Significant Projects. The purpose of the report is to obtain members' agreement in relation to financial changes to significant projects and programmes contained within the 2021 Infrastructure Asset Class Capital Programme. Mike Fox is available through Teams to take any questions on the report. Mike, have you any update, or are you happy just to go to questions?
Just happy to go to questions, Chair. Just to advise also that there are other colleagues on the call as well if there are any specific questions that need answered.
Okay, I'll leave that for you to guide us towards them if need be. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Sean Marshall.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I've not got a problem as such with the report and the budget pressures. The one thing I would say, though, is we're identifying a number of underspends in various categories, such as drainage, carriage resurfacing, etc. It's just that the last meeting I discussed that was a number of projects that have been suspended, and I can only relate to ones I'm aware to in my ward, but certainly U148 drainage and the continuation of the footway improvement from Eastrix to Dornoch. I think at the last meeting it was agreed that I would get reasons why these had been postponed. So I'm really making that point that we probably need to see the information. We need to understand when projects are suspended, especially if they're phased projects. But I've no problem with the pressures that we're under at the moment and the environment of budgets as suggested.
Okay, I've got to let Dougie Campbell the next. Ian Blake and Pauline, your hands are still up. Are they historical? Thank you. Dougie?
Thank you, Chair. I was really disappointed to see the inclusion of Kirkcudbright Bridge in this report. And I can't begin to tell you how really disappointed I am about this, because I thought I made it crystal clear at committee last month that we needed to know if there were going to be any additional costs beyond what was tabled, and there was nothing forthcoming on this. That said, I still feel strongly that we made the right decision, and to simply abandon the work that was at an advanced stage wasn't an option. Kirkcudbright Bridge is designated as a weak bridge, and we've got a legal obligation to protect the users of the bridge, irrespective of whether road users ignore the signs. And this is going to be a matter for the police to enforce. And in terms of it was previously proposed that we should be looking at alternative options. I again don't think that was the right way to go with this, because it would have meant further months of restrictions on the bridge, and possibly sort of leading us into the start of the next tourist season, and with no guarantee of spiralling costs. But just to conclude, really, really frustrated about this, and I hope my comments on that are noted. Thanks.
Yeah, Dougie, they are noted. I would suggest, though, your concern over costs, and that are exactly why this is an urgent paper here today. This is the first opportunity to get it to members since that last time. So, is there anyone else? Nope. I've seen any. In that case, we'll go to the recommendations. So, one, we're asked to note the financial position of the infrastructure asset class programme 2021 of 9.223 million, with projected slippage, which is explained in the appendix, of 1.019 million. 2.2, agree the project and programme variations, that's at section 3.3. 2.3, agree to £241,000 being wired from carriageway strengthening to coastal infrastructure to support the A716 and other works set out in paragraph 3.3.7. And then finally, 2.4, agree to the addition of schemes to the infrastructure asset class capital programme for 2021 as highlighted in the following programmes: the road safety programme at paragraph 3.41 and the speed limits and traffic calming programme at paragraph 3.42. We all agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. I have no more business. All I would like to do is thank you all for the way you've conducted business here today in such a business-like way, and thank you for attending. Just look after yourself and stay safe. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.